I had one white friend. His name was Timmy. He had red hair. He had a hook.
Hello, everyone. Hola, mis amigos. You're listening to Oh My God, Hi, Hijo de Dios. Hola. With me, George Lopez. Porque, ¿sabes qué? Let's do the show. Porque I got a lot of things to do. I gotta go to that dry cleaner ahí. My kid fell. Se pegó la cabeza. I gotta go get some Neosporin Paul.
You know what George is?
Oh, I'm sure he's around here somewhere.
What's his name?
George
Lopez.
George Lopez.
Oh my God!
OMG.
OMG! Hi!
Oh my God, hi. With hand sanitizer, like when we ran around, we got dirty, and you ended up with that fucking dirt ring on your neck.
Of course, yeah.
And when you were rolling around in the grass, you fucking itch like a motherfucker. You get home and you fucking itching and shit. But nobody had hand sanitizer. Nobody had really washed their hands. And when you said to somebody, "Hey, we're gonna eat, so go wash your hands."
Yeah.
I never did. I was only a child.
Yeah.
But a lot of people did, and a lot of people didn't. But those were the things that built up your immune system. So the minute that you started to put hand sanitizer or facial wipes, you were immediately breaking down your own natural body's immune system.
Yeah. You know what? I heard some shit about that with like nut allergies. The same thing. They because they got so precious about it all. And then there was an article saying that that's kind of what perpetuated this nut allergy thing.
Too clean.
Listen, I would never marry a dude, but if I marry a dude, it would be right here.
Yeah.
Because what happens is,
Thanks a
because
lot.
when we were growing up, hey,
Sorry.
you're gonna be
Hey,
my
man.
father. You're my father's side salad. Eh? So because when we were growing up, there wasn't as many people as there is now, but there was a hurry to make more peanuts, so they started to make a synthetic peanut.
Yeah.
And then with that created issues with allergies. Just like when you started to have beef or chicken or whatever, and then now they make chickens with no heads. These motherfuckers are 18 pounds with no heads.
No beaks and shit.
And they grow, 9 times as fast as chickens would.
Yeah.
Then everybody started to have the hormones in the food, the hormones in the milk, the hormones everywhere in the chicken and the peanuts. And I believe that's where the allergies came from.
Yeah, same with wheat. Like the wheat they have today is just like not regular wheat like it was back in the day when people didn't have allergies to wheat and gluten and all that stuff. Now it's got all this other shit in there to make it.
Let me tell you something. When I was in elementary school, there was a girl. Her name was Brenda Gluten. That was her last name, Gluten. And she had the biggest titties that you would see. And so when someone said, "Oh, I'm gluten free," all I could think about was Brenda Gluten, because she was like in 7th grade. Wank and like full and out. She didn't wear a bra in 7th grade. I was in 7th grade, 1973. They didn't invent bras till 75. So, I mean, she wore no bra like in gym class.
Gluten is good,
bro. And then you hear gluten later on, and you don't think it's in wheat. That wasn't a problem.
So you think of it as a good thing,
bro?
You can't help it now.
Where did you go to school?
San Fernando High.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah, but we're okay. I guess we should probably introduce.
We should introduce our wonderful guest. All right. Well,
since you're in charge of introductions, which are all fucking horrible.
Yeah.
This guy right here.
I'm known for horrible introductions, but I'm
good. I'd like to hear this.
To me, this dude is like.
He's living the dream.
I consider him on the
right
on the highest
LTD.
level.
That's what I say. Living the
man.
dream, man.
See, how about that? Living the
LTD.
dream.
What about back in level LTD? Jeffrey Osborne.
Oh, well, that's a different LTD.
Okay.
I know that one too.
Well, obviously he's a guitarist for supergroup Velvet Revolver.
Motherfucker, how you say obviously? What if I didn't know?
It's Dave Kushner.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
But what if I did? What about the people that listen to the podcast don't know him, and then you'd be like, obviously.
So I already got out of the block.
Why don't you go work
struggling.
for fucking NASA? So you go, oh, obviously the tile wasn't secure enough, and that's why we had an issue.
They're not accepting applications right now.
If you're gonna do an introduction, because this is probably like the 9th. I mean,
This is our 10th introduction. This is my 10th introduction.
And all of them have been fucking awful. And finally, we get somebody that wants to be here.
I'm very excited about this, and and here we go.
If you're very excited,
I can go in the hall while you guys work this out.
No, this is fine. This is how we do it. This is how we do it.
Do it in front of you.
Yeah, we're learning as we're doing.
What do you mean, bored motherfucker? I'm in syndication. I've had a stellar career. So
that's right.
It's on you. It ain't on me. It ain't on Dave, man. I just want people who are listening right now to not say, obviously we know who this is, give him the credit
I'm
that he
talking
deserves.
like we're in a little room. Okay, today's guest, we're very fortunate to have the
Still awful.
guitarist of the supergroup Velvet Revolver, co-owner of Monkey Mind Music Group, currently working on motion pictures, television shows, documentaries, and video games. ASCAP winner and Emmy Award
Why you gotta read
nominated.
so fucking fast though? Like
Let it all sink
Let
in.
it-
Okay, all right, let's
mine.
enjoy it.
Okay, let's do it again.
I don't care.
Today's guest.
Oh, that's
Don't do it slower. Just do it right.
He's guitarist for supergroup
This
Velvet
man's
Revolver.
awesome, man.
Amazing, right?
Thank you.
Number one, that's great. Co-owner of Monkey Mind Music Group,
yes.
right?
Check.
ASCAP winner, Emmy Award nominated for theme song of Sons of Anarchy,
Correct.
This Life.
Yes.
That's the name of it. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Kushner.
Thank you.
Dave, first of all, I would want to just say thank you for inviting yourself to the show. Like Dave found us.
Which is most amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm driving all over Burbank. If I heard that
You showed up
motherfucker
at the
George
door.
Lopez is around
Okay,
here and
man.
that other guy.
Okay,
Yeah, go.
where were you born? Where'd you go to school?
I was born in L.A. Born in
Hospital?
hospital, Kaiser, on Sunset in Vermont. My whole history took
real?
place on Vermont.
Okay, Sunset and Vermont. That's why I live over there. Sunset and Vermont. Yeah,
you
It's
live
kind
right
of,
there.
I don't know if it's like it's not East LA, but it's like East Hollywood almost. 'Cause
Yes.
it's like in between now Silver Lake and Hollywood. So I guess
in
it's
between
Koreatown now.
Scientology. Are you a Scientologist? Because if
I
you
am
are,
not.
let's hold hands while the spaceship takes us away.
Let's go. That used to be Cedars, where the Scientology building is,
It
across
is?
from
It was?
Kaiser. That used to be Cedars. So my parents met at LACC on Vermont. I was born at Kaiser on Sunset, Vermont.
Wait a minute. What's LACC?
Los Angeles City, College.
Well, I went to West Valley Occupational Center, which is at least
just as
45
well.
miles away. That's why I went.
Just as-
I ran
just
track
as
meets
good.
there when I was 10.
Your parents met there.
LACC.
Are your parents
Yeah.
still together?
My mom passed away, and my dad lives in Santa Monica.
All right, right on, man.
But we grew up. I went to Bancroft Junior High, and went to Fairfax High
Wait a
School.
minute. Have you ever heard of Bancroft Junior?
I don't know of Bancroft Junior High. Fairfax, yes.
Bancroft's like, you know where Trejo's Donuts is?
I do.
It's right there,
Oh.
right around the corner.
Oh, nice. What was that before Trejo's Donuts?
Donut time.
Donut
no,
time.
Not only
Yeah.
It was something, yeah.
not only was it donut time, but right up that same street there was a Del Taco across the street, but right
Where
up the
Walgreens
street
is now.
is where John Goodman met the dude with his undies and the Uzi
Right.
when they went to go give the money to the guys in the Big Lebowski.
Right.
He pulled up in the parking lot of that
Yeah.
place, which
Yeah,
was
yeah.
right by there, and he goes, "You don't think I was rolling in this place naked, did you?" And right there in that area.
That's
so
where Bancroft is,
It's
right around
dirty
the corner.
undies in there.
Oh.
Dirty is whites.
Baby.
Or Del Taco, dude. I remember
The
I
Del
went into
Taco is
I
now
went into-
a-
in Walgreens.
oh.
I went into that Del Taco because there was a guy. They had these shirts. There was like their sayings, and it said "Shut up and eat your beans" on the back of that shirt.
That's awesome.
And I went into that Del Taco, and I
that's
said,
awesome.
"Can I buy one of those shirts?" And they're like, "Oh no, it's just employees." And then one of the employees was like, "Oh, dude, I'll sell you my shirt. Come back out at 3. That's how my shift is over." And he sold me his used
that's
"Shut up and eat your
beautiful.
beans" shirt
that's
for $20. It was awesome.
Listen, man,
that's
there's
classic.
no way that if a fucking employee is wearing a shirt that says "Shut up and eat your beef," should have turned into a fucking Walgreens.
Yeah.
They should have
You
turned
said
into
that
the
alone.
first, second story Del Taco.
That's right.
So great.
That's right.
Man, all right. So, where does the music come from? Was your father into music? Grandfather? Like, how far back can you trace music in your life?
So my mom's side of the family is all Mexicans, Valdez and Torres, married and then made. So
Well,
that's
no,
my.
don't say it like that. Like, how was that growing up?
Well, it's funny. That's why I'm here, is to get to be more Mexican. And I heard you could help me with that.
I can fucking
because I'm
help
not Mexican enough, dude. Like,
Well, first of all, you've been dry
Yeah.
for 31 years.
I
That's
know.
very Mexican.
I know.
You know, when we fill out the application,
Okay.
I'll co-sign to that.
Yeah.
But when you were growing up, what
so-
made you feel less Mexican?
Well, it's funny. So my mom moved to LA from Iowa, right? And there's a ton of Mexicans in the middle of the country because I guess they all moved in the 20s, moved into the middle of the country to build the railroads. So there was like the Chinese on the coasts and all the Mexicans came up from Mexico. So there was this big, so I have a huge, big extended Mexican family in Iowa.
Wow, man, that's awesome, dude.
So they came together, the Valdez and the Torreses, and they went into, settled into Iowa. They, made my mom, because she didn't, her and her sister and stuff, they spoke English more than Spanish so that they could talk and their parents wouldn't know what they were saying. To like kind of get over on the parents as teenagers.
It's totally the opposite of what usually it is, because our parents would be speaking Spanish, and so you wouldn't know in English. Yeah.
So by the time my mom moved out here and everything, she didn't really speak a lot of Spanish when I was growing up. Wow. So I never learned Spanish really. I mean, I can glean words here and there, but not the way I want to. And and then my dad's full on just Jewish, Russian Jew, white guy. And so then...
And where did they meet?
At LACC, at Los Angeles City
LACC.
College.
Yeah, okay.
And they were young, like 23, 20 when they got together. Then I was born. And then my dad bought my mom an acoustic nylon string. So it was just sitting in my house. And then when I was around 13...
But he bought her a guitar because was your mom musical? Was her family musical?
My grandfather, my great-grandfather, this is no lie, used to play guitar at the intermission at the bullfights in Michoacan, years ago.
Okay, let me say something. This is the thing that, Dave, man, respect, because these are the things that nobody knows. That at bullfights and in Los Angeles, at all those great theaters, a lot of them are gone, Orpheum, the Los Angeles Theater, all those great theaters, intermission of movies and intermission of bullfights and intermission of any activity, somebody would come out and play guitar. At the Orpheum Theater, when in between movies, a guy would come out on a horse dressed as a mariachi and do rope tricks in between movies. Yeah. So, when you go see, listen, I hate to racially divide, but, I do all the time. If you went to go see fucking Jaws and another movie came on, nothing, the popcorn that fucking danced and the soda that talked, let's go out to the lobby, that bullshit. Yeah. But when you went to a fucking theater that had Latino or bullfights, you actually saw a live performance. And that's incredible right there, man. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So that's that was my great grandfather, my grandfather, my mom's dad. He played guitar and was an artist. So it's cool because I have his old acoustic guitar.
Amazing.
But the case that it comes in is all painted. Like he did a painting on the outside of the case, so it's really cool. So I had that.
He did it himself?
Yeah, he did it. It's just like, flowers and whatever. But I do have this really incredible Last Supper. So when he was in the war, and when he was sick, like years later, he was in the hospital. And
what war? Because there's a lot of wars, Blood Crips. There's a lot of the Chicano.
It was in World War II. World War II.
Yeah.
But he, I think it was World War II. I could be wrong. Sorry if I am. But he, they used to do these. Those it's like copper colored. It's like a thin sheet of copper, and you do like a relief painting on it.
Right, sure.
So he did one of the Last Supper that I have. It's really cool. Wow. Like when he was in the hospital. But it's like so detailed, dude. Like the toenails, like little toenails on the feet under the table, and it's only this big, But luckily, I have that too, and so. But I didn't really know him that well growing up, and I know he was. I probably met him or saw him a handful of times.
But you saw him around and things like that.
But he lived in Iowa, and I lived in LA, so I saw him a couple times, and then. Then my mom wasn't super musical, but she grew up I mean, but she got really involved in a lot of art. So I had no.
So it was in the family. Art.
Yeah, I had no
music was in
intention of
blood, yeah.
playing music until I was about 14, 15.
Yeah.
And all I wanted to do was be a graphic artist. Like that was my thing. My mom was really involved in this thing called Barrio Mobile Art Studio, which was it was almost like an ice cream truck, like a big ice cream truck. And it was in East LA, and it was like this like group kind of contingency of Mexican artists. And it was in East LA, and they would drive this truck with art supplies into like these different parks and stuff in East LA.
Amazing.
And park, and then kids would come, and there was like these established artists like this. There was this dude Gronk, Gronk?
No, of course, Gronk. Yeah.
So
dude.
Gronk babysat me once, like when I was a kid, and like she knew Gronk and like a bunch of other dudes. Self-help graphics was another thing that he did. She was involved in. So she.
But wait a minute, let's talk about Gronk, man, because Gronk is a famous Chicano artist.
Yes.
And what do you mean he babysat you?
Because he was just a couple times when like I was, I guess my mom was like, "Hey, can you watch my kid? I'm gonna go." And he was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And before he was big, and when he was still coming up, and they had they had the mobile art studio, but they had this graphics contingency called Self-Help Graphics in East LA, and my mom worked with a lot of nonprofit, Chicano art.
So Gronk became a famous Chicano artist, and in your recollection of him, what stood out to, because you as an artist, in music and an artist, what stood out about being around Gronk that you remember that was a little bit different, because an artist is really different than everybody else. And what stood out about Gronk that you remember?
I got to be honest, dude. I want to make up some shit and have it be really cool. But
regular?
like, he was just a little, eccentric and just different and cool. But I was really young, so I don't remember a lot of, how he was or being around him a lot.
That's cool.
It was a couple times, but it was just cool, like it really turned me on to all of that, like Posada and, like art like that, because I was into, that kind of graphic art style,
right?
And learned about all of that stuff and woodblock printing and all that different styles of art that they would do. So it was just cool, man. I was exposed to a lot of that stuff at a really young age. But since then, and like the Dia de los Muertos parades and shit, because they would always be a part of that, because it was in East LA, and then we would go down the Olvera Street and check it out. So, and the thing is like it's kind of faded away a little, like my mom died about 10 years ago, and and it's funny because it's like it's still there, but it's not here. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's not right in front of me. It's a little more like over there, and I miss it time to time. I think about it, and I think about like every Halloween I'm like, oh wait, which day is Day of the Dead? I got to take my kids because I have 2 kids, and I'm like, I want to take them down to the, every year it's like I'm gonna take them down to the parade down in East LA, and then I forget or I miss the day or because it's just like.
No, sure, man, you're right. Yeah, you're
so
right.
it's something I'm always kind of trying to get back to. You know what I mean?
But Day of the Dead is a big thing in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
So but here in the United States, I would say that I grew up in San Fernando. I'm going to be 60 the 23rd, and even growing up in the valley there in San Fernando, Mission Hills, Pacoima, that it wasn't as big a thing with us even back then. So I understand that.
But then it was like what was it, The Book of Life?
Yeah.
Is that the movie?
It shed light on it. It's a bigger thing now since that movie, right?
Yeah. Oh, was it Book of Life or there was another movie,
and
right?
Coco.
Yeah.
Coco. Yeah, Coco.
But I mean, those, like when I see those kind of movies, I get all emotional. Because it's like I have a lot of history.
But I do believe that independently, even before the Book of Life or Coco, that independently, the Day of the Dead was celebrated individually within families, and back then nobody really thought of it as being a holiday, but Day of the Dead, that as families you would gather things that someone who had passed liked and put them out together, and and kind of give them the respect of being gone. but it was more as a family thing and not as a universal or looked at as a kind of a holiday.
Yeah,
you know,
more like a day of remembrance.
A day of remembrance.
Yeah.
And I don't even think if you look at like, you know, whether it's Valentine's Day or whether it's St. Pat, I mean, it's not really a holiday, but it's a made-up holiday. But the Day of the Dead was something that was traditionally brought from, you know, Latinos in Mexico and out here, and it was more of a remembrance that became something later on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's true. So when at 13, 14, and you saw the guitar, like, what kind of music were you into at that time?
I mean,
was it music that drew you to the guitar, or was it a friend, or was it something you saw? Because at that time, I think, you know, there was a lot more music shows, you know, like American Bandstand was on, or you could see like
14
special.
You were close to MTV starting out, right? 14, that's like 81ish. Like
I was. It was right before that. I don't even think we had cable though.
Oh, there you go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you didn't.
Yeah.
Like you had like 2 through 13, and you didn't have cable yet. You know, and that was like a whole other kind of thing.
Do you remember before cable?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
My uncle Freddie lived in Northridge, Reseda, and they had cable, and I would go over there sometimes. And the first time I saw MTV, I was at my Uncle Freddie's house in Northridge over there by I like to say Balboa and
Devonshire.
Roscoe and Balboa over in that area. But I lived in Mission Hills; it wasn't there yet. So the whole MTV thing, they got that,
Yeah, I don't even remember. I remember like public access and cable and PBS. You know, like it would. But
what were you and your friends into, like in elementary school or in junior high?
I got into, you know, Sabbath and
nice.
And
did you guys skateboard? Did you BMX? Were you doing?
Yeah, so I grew up, you know, leading to the band. Like Slash and I went to Bancroft and junior high together. Wow. He was a grade ahead of me.
Yeah.
But like he was super into BMX.
Yeah.
And I was into skateboarding I started around 12, 13, going to Marina Del Rey skate park when it was still there, you know, out in Marina Del Rey. Yeah. There was a bus that went from Fairfax and Wilshire. The 877 take you all the way and leave you right in front of the skate park. It would go on the freeway and everything. So I used to go to the skate park a lot and before I got into punk rock, I was, you know, into Sabbath, The Who, you know, all those Hendrix, Zeppelin, all of those bands were a huge influence for me. Like really, I was really like, I would watch The Kids Are All Right, or I'd watch, you know, Song Remains the Same. And that was like my whole world really at that time.
And what was the first show you went to, and where was it? Like, who'd you go?
The first concert, big concert I ever went to that I remember was the Summer Strut. It was at Anaheim Stadium. It was Scorpions, Loverboy, Iron Maiden, and Foreigner. And Foreigner was the headliner.
Did you go to that?
I went to Day in the Green, same lineup.
Oh, really?
Day in the Green in Oakland was that same lineup.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Crazy.
What year was that?
For me, it had to be 81.
Yeah.
Something like that. Maybe 79, 80, 79, between 79 and 81.
Yeah, so I would have been 54, so.
Yeah, we're the same age.
I would have been around, Yeah, that was the first show I can remember.
And what'd you think, man? Were you?
It was awesome, dude. I mean, I was at
like they bring Eddie out.
Yeah,
they bring Eddie out.
For me, it was because I was into like Foreigner. You know, I was into all those, not Loverboy really, but Maiden and I remember that when they did Jukebox Hero.
Yeah.
And they brought out like the inflatable 40-foot jukebox, and then it blows up like at the big climax of the song. So. Yeah. It was great, and there was a big fight. Like, it's funny. Like at Anaheim Stadium, the upper tiers started fighting with everyone on the field, and they just started throwing like cups full of rocks and dirt, and so it's like at one point you're just like, oh shit, and you couldn't hide anywhere because you're just like on the grass, you know. It's like you can't really, you could try and make it to the side, but you're just in the middle, you know, and people are from the upper tiers are throwing shit, and people from down below are throwing shit back up. And
well, you know, I'm the oldest here, but when people listen to this. And now when they have those things, very rarely do, because you know now there's DJs and there's rap and there's not as many outdoor festivals. But I went to the World Music Festival in 1979. It was a Friday, maybe it was a Saturday and Sunday. My friend Alberto worked at Church's Chicken in San Fernando, and we went when he got off at midnight, and he brought a bunch of chicken. We drove down to the Coliseum, and the next day it was Toto, the Scorpions, Blackfoot, Molly Hatchet, UFO, Van Halen co-headline with Aerosmith, Ted Nugent, and then the next day Toto played, and you know, man, it
change your life.
None of our parents were there. We fucking slept outside in fucking sleeping bags outside by the sports arena. Nobody gave a fuck. We were gone. We were still in high school, man. I was 17 years old. Yeah. The World Music Festival.
Yeah.
When we were all fucking loaded. So Black Sabbath comes out, and they're doing the rain thing. You know, the and the tone thing.
Yeah.
Thing. What song is that?
Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath. So so I'm standing on the field of the Coliseum, right by the track. There's a little bit of like a 3-inch curb that separates the track from the thing. Right? You know what I'm talking about. Right, and I'm standing there with my friends. And I think Ronnie James Dio was singing with Black Sabbath at that time. They had Heaven and Hell, and I'm standing there, and the sun's going down. You hear the chimes. What is this that stands before? I fucking went down. I fucking look up, and my friends are like, "Are you all right?" I was so fucked. But the minute I heard the first Black Sabbath live, it fucking weakened my legs, and I went completely what is down. And they played Heaven and Hell, and they played Wishing Rules. Well, and all that stuff, man.
Yeah.
Dude, my God.
It's incredible, dude.
And I remember that my friend Ernie that made the show after, you know, Ernie would always get mad, would always make fun of his mom. And there was a lady that was, a girl that was naked, completely naked. And tits hanging out, big bush. She was 79, and Ernie hadn't seen her yet, and we would always make fun of his mom. So I go, Ernie, I didn't know your mom had a ticket. And he looked, and he got mad. And he fucking took off. So every time we got mad, he fucking left. We didn't see him the rest of the weekend. I don't know how he got home,
that poor guy.
but he would just be he would get mad because we make fun of his mom.
Miserable.
But
that was like me at the US Festival, dude. The same thing. Like we went. I was like 17. It was in 83, I think.
Yeah.
And we went to the heavy metal day with Van Halen and Scorpions and Motley and Ozzy and all. And I remember it was like me and 2 guys from Slash's band at the time. Not Slash, but in high school he had a band called Titus Sloan. And it was me and Ronnie and Adam, who was a drummer and bass player in his band. And my friend Louie. And we drove in I don't even know whose van it was. And we drove out there.
That Glen Helen arena.
Yeah, we had a keg of beer, and we drove all the way out there, and we took mushrooms. And the night before, same thing in the parking lot. And I was like, and there was like,
what was that like, dude? Because there was all these people like out there, right?
Yeah, it was like I just remember seeing this 10-foot tall, shadowy thing that looked like Eddie from Iron Maiden, and I was like, so fucked up. I was like, do you see that? Are you seeing? Like we all, like a couple people said they saw it, but no one ever figured out what it was. And it was, you know, and then the next day we passed out. We went, you had to walk like almost like 45 minutes to get to the area.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was amazing, but it was miserable at the same time because you're just in the middle of a crowd.
So many people.
You got a great spot, So you're like, you don't want to go,
You can't leave,
go to the
like,
bathroom or
yeah.
get water. You don't think to bring water or
Right,
anything like that.
right.
You're 17. You're dehydrated. You've been drinking all night. You mushrooms. You're
But you
like
know, fucking
dying.
everybody takes water now. Back then, nobody even thought
that-
about bringing fucking water, man.
Back
or
then, we
anything.
didn't have a way to bring it. You just always
Yeah.
drank out of a fountain anyway, so you didn't have.
I remember
no one
my
had
friend,
stuff.
the drummer, Adam, he left. He's like, dude, I don't feel so good. I gotta get some water. Because we were walking, I remember we were walking on these train tracks, like you said, a little 3-inch thing. And he had fallen off the train track and cut his ankle. But I guess he like lost a lot of blood that we didn't really realize. So the next day, you know, you're in the middle, it's fucking hot. Everyone's dehydrated. And he's like, oh, I don't feel so good. I'm gonna go to I gotta get some water. I remember waters were like $3, which we were like $3 for a
yeah.
water.
Ton of money.
And he ended up in the tent, like in the medic's tent,
Yep.
all day. We never heard from him again. Like same thing, like you're like Ernie, dude.
Yeah.
We never knew what happened to him. We were like, oh, should we leave? Like, oh, I don't know if we should leave. Like, what should we
Right,
do?
okay,
And
yeah.
same thing. And then we fucking found out that he was in the medic's tent all day, and he got home or something happened.
You know what they would do? They would
He
bring
was
out.
laid out. He didn't see any of the concert. or
I
anything?
he was in there all day.
Oh,
He heard it.
missed the.
They used to
festival.
fucking shoot. They used to shoot water out at the crowd. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Nobody had water. They would shoot water out at you.
Yeah.
Back no bottle of water back then. It was all like canteens and shit. If you had to,
Yeah.
like, really, there was no way to really
But no
carry
one
water.
thought about it.
So you went to school with Saul Hudson Slash.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Slash and I became buds later on, but you went to school with Slash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you play guitar. Slash was into like BMX and skateboarding and stuff,
Yeah.
right? And then you guys were you in Slash's first band?
No. We were friends, but we were, we didn't really ever. I didn't start playing guitar till like 9th or 10th grade, you know. And then I was just my whole thing was like, I saw the nylon guitar. I tried to play Stairway to Heaven. It was too hard. They had music classes at the school. They're like, you can't play with a pick, you know, because it was like you know,
classical
regular
guitar,
classical
yeah.
guitar,
Yeah.
and the classes were more, you know, regimented, and I couldn't play Stairway to Heaven, so I just gave up, you know, and I was like, fuck it. And then a year later, punk rock came along, you know, and all those bands like Black Flag and Circle Jerks and all those bands were playing. The Starwood was still there.
Did you go to the Starwood?
Yeah, the Whiskey, the Starwood, all those. It was
Yeah.
amazing, you know, like the decline of Western civilization. Like when that movie came
Oh, sure,
out, I
it's
went
awesome.
to the premiere on Hollywood
So
Boulevard
if
at
anybody,
midnight.
have you seen The Decline of Western Civilization?
No, I know of the movie. I've
If
never seen
anybody
it.
that's listening or watching or anything, if you're into music or whatever, but if you're just into just rock and the way things started and the people that were involved, people that you probably will never hear of, but that were awesome in that time, that's what to watch. And I think there's maybe 4 episodes of it.
No, there's 2 movies. There's the Metal Years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which is good too. It's funny and whatever. But this one is just a straight up movie.
But what
that
about
was
the dude that's
punk
laying
rock.
that's in the pool with his mom and he's
That's the metal one. That's the
who's that guy? What's his name?
He's Chris Holmes.
Is that guy still alive? I don't know. This motherfucker's pouring remember he's in the pool?
Yeah.
Floating. His mom's hanging by the side of the pool. And he's like, oh, yeah, I rock. And he did. And he's just pouring like a bottle of Smirnoff.
Oh my god.
He was the guitar player in Wasp.
Oh, are you serious? In Wasp?
Yeah,
Oh,
Chris
right
Holmes,
on.
a blonde
Yeah,
haired guy.
I know.
That
I know
motherfucker
him.
was crazy.
Yeah. But so
That's nuts.
that's what happened. Then some girl I knew was in a band called Mad Society, which was like these little kid punk band. Those were all the kids that I was friends with in school, and we all went to school together. And then she taught me how to play a bar chord, and I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, wait, I can just move this up and down, and I can play like any song, like and
You didn't
I
bring a
just
guitar, did you?
no, I have this puppy, and the puppy bit my
Oh,
playing my finger like right on where I do play the guitar.
Just bit you.
I got like bites everywhere. I got this little puppy like
Fuck that dog.
last
What
week.
kind of dog is that? Fuck dog. So the barcode
Barcode changed your life.
Yeah, and then I just got really into it and got into, you know, I was into punk rock already, and I was like, oh, this is how you play this song? And wait, I can play that song too? And I, you know, because all the punk rock songs are mostly bar chords.
And you were 14-ish? Right?
At that point, I was 16.
Okay, so
15, 16. And then that was it. I was off and running. And then those guys, the Mad Society guys, my buddy Mark, Bashan, and this guy Louis Metz. They both were, you know, super just into music. Like even though we were into punk rock, we would listen to The Who and Sabbath and all these bands, UFO, all those bands.
Oh,
and then we got into, and then Mark was a guitar player. And so Mark was like, I remember Mark would, because they had like split level apartments, and you could go in between apartments. And
where were the apartments at?
On Gardner and Santa Monica.
Where here we go, another place that's funny.
Yeah, where Okie Dogs used to be. Then now it's a Fat Burger. And I remember Mark would always come home because, you know, we would still buy records then. And there's had Aaron's Records over by Fairfax and these different record stores. And I remember him coming home and saying like, dude, when the first Ozzy record came out, and he's like, dude, I heard this guy's better than Eddie Van Halen. You know, it was like with Randy Rhoads.
Yeah,
and,
Randy
you know,
Rhoads.
we
Blizzard of
sat
Oz.
around, yeah, Blizzard of Oz.
Yeah, yeah.
And we sat around and we listened and we're like, whoa.
That's some amazing
pretty fucking
stuff on there.
Yeah.
Blizzard of Oz was pretty fucking amazing.
Oh,
man.
amazing.
Yeah.
He was
Crazy Train and
Randy,
Yeah.
Randy was smoking on that.
Amazing. Dude.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just different guitar players. And then it was cool because he was really into, like when Yngwie Malmsteen was in that band Steeler, which was like a local LA band at first. And he's like, oh, and then they bring home this record and be like, this guy's better than that guy. You know, it was always this guy's better than Randy Rhoads, or this guy's better than Yngwie, or this guy's better than that. So it was cool, man. We just sat around and smoked weed and did other things and just fucking listened to music and tried to play guitar.
Beautiful. And what was the turning point though? So were you more comfortable with rhythm, or were you early on, or was lead you just wanted to be the guy?
I was into both, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got to a point where when I got into it, I got really kind of obsessed over playing, and I would just sit in a room and play all day, and you know, try and play leads and whatever. And I remember this time, I took acid, and I was I remember you know those old school the tape recorders, and I remember oh, dude, I get it now. This is I get Hendrix, I get it all. And I had this Strat, and I was playing all this stuff, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so awesome. And then I taped it, and I listened back, and I was like, this is fucking awful, dude. It's
That's awesome.
So bad.
That's awesome.
But I could move my fingers around, and I was a really bad student in high school, and you know, all of us, dude, Slash, everyone I know ended up taking the GED instead of graduating, you know, to get out early. I got out at 11th grade, and you know, I told my mom I want to go to music school. So I ended up going to MI because I knew I could move my fingers, but I didn't know where to put them, you know. And she's like, you can just go to MI.
And what's it like to get in MI? Because you know, I would drive around and see those guys out there, but what's the process of getting in there?
I mean, back then it was just bass, guitar, and drums. You know, it was Bass Institute of Technology, guitar, and there was a building on Hollywood Boulevard. And now it's huge. Now it's
Music Institute.
They're across the
totally
street. They've got
you
know, engineer school and this school and that school. But back then it was really small, and it was one floor in a building on Hollywood Boulevard, and you just went. I think I went in and I just played for them.
So you kind of audition. You do actually audition.
Yeah,
for
you gotta know how to play, because that's all you do. You don't take any academics. It's just playing guitar.
But they teach you how to read music?
They teach you ear training, sight reading, harmony and theory. They teach you everything about. That's what's great about it. It's and there's no other academics to get in the way. It's just I want to learn. You know, and now they do accreditation if you want to be a teacher or whatever. Back then it was just
it's just a trade school for your instrument, right?
Shredding.
Yeah.
But do you read music?
To shred, that's awesome.
Do you read music?
I don't. I mean, I did,
But
but
Slash doesn't read music, right?
No, we both. You forget. It's a
use or lose kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a thing you have to use in order to.
Well, I don't think it's a use or lose. I just think a lot of dudes don't really learn how to, because if you can play fast, if you start to shred, you just remember the stuff. Mr. Van Halen and I were very close friends, and in that time that I knew him and he would play for me, I would say, "Did you learn how to read music?" And he would say, "No." And I said, "Well, how do you know that?" And then, of course, you record everything, and he would say, "I would just remember it."
Yeah.
I would just remember it.
And I would have to believe on the creative side of it, when you're making the music or composing, you're not writing it down because, like you said, you'll remember it. So, I mean, I would have to go all the way back from the Beatles and stuff. They some of them have classes too, but none of them read music as well because they were creating all the time, and that's how they remember their stuff. Is that somewhat?
I mean, dude, now honestly, now when I write stuff, even now, I literally take my phone and I video what I'm doing with my left hand because I always try. Like I'm a lot more like when I was in Velvet Revolver, right? Like Duff and Slash and Matt, you know, had been in Guns N' Roses for so long together, and they had this thing that they would do at rehearsal where they would kind of crowd around. Duff and Slash would kind of crowd around Matt, you know, just stand right in front of his drum set, and those guys are really good at, you know, Slash would come up with some fucking crazy mind-bending, you know, riff. And then Duff would walk over and look at it and be like, oh, yeah, okay. And like get it in a second. And I'm the guy that's like, wait, can you show me that again? You know, and I'd sit there and really like study it. And it would take me like really, I would want to say like, let me just take this home and like really get my head around. Yeah. Like I'm that guy. So, you know, I will even now, like if I'm going to write something, I'll try like 20 different things, but because I don't remember like, oh, that's an A flat minor, or that's a B suspended chord with a flat 9, or whatever that stuff is, I forget. And I'm just doing shapes basically. So I need to record it and see, because I will record something and have no idea how to play it unless I could see myself.
Well, let's not skip to Velvet Revolver. Should we start it?
Wherever you want. I'm good.
How did you get to I mean, where did you feel like you were a good enough guitar player? You were in a lot of bands, right?
Yeah.
You were
yeah. I played in Danzig. I played in this band Infectious Grooves. I played in a punk band called Wasted Youth. I played in tons of bands.
And what's the Asian band? The
Zilch. Yeah. That's a whole crazy story, but.
But yeah, if you could tell us a little bit about that. I mean, how'd that come about? I mean, that was right before Velvet Revolver, correct? Yeah.
Well, so really fast, it's like the trajectory was, so I was, I got in Wasted Youth when it was like 88, Wasted Youth, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was like the later version of Wasted Youth when they kind of like was punk rock, but it was kind of metal too. So I was just out of school. We had mutual friends, and I got in the band. I didn't know any of those guys when I went in, but Joey Castillo, the drummer, who later on went to play with in Danzig and then Queens of the Stone Age. He was in for a long time. Now he's in a band called The Bronx, and he and I became really good friends in that band. And then there was a couple bands later where he ended up playing in Danzig. Then he down the line asked me to try out for Danzig. Then I was in Danzig for a while, and then in between, I played in this band, the Electric Love Hogs. We made a record. The producer was doing Infectious Grooves record next door, and so I went and played on that record. And it was all kind of very incestuous.
Yeah, because
growing up here, everyone knows everyone.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And so. So it just kept going like that, and then and along the way, I, just had regular jobs in between, where I would work and build sets and do that kind of stuff. And so like Danzig would happen. I was in that for 9 months, but I said something that Glenn didn't like, and then I got kicked out, and then me and the bass player.
But
both
is it like that? Like you said something?
Yeah, dude,
what did you say to him, man?
That's good.
Honestly, listen. I had a DJ working with me. And we were in Austin, Texas, at wherever the Longhorns play. And I had sold that place out, UT. Mm-hmm. And the DJ, who was brand new, said, fuck, who has to go in front of all these people? Like, while we were doing really kind of like on stage check. Yeah. And it was me. Yeah. So for him to say like, oh my God, this place is going to be full. Who the fuck is going up there? And it was me. I fired that motherfucker. Yeah. After that show, because it's like you don't want somebody with you that's going to be like, oh my God, who's gonna?
Yeah.
How can anybody perform?
That's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
He goes,
Really? That was the same? Oh,
well, it was
hilarious.
'cause
That's perfect.
I remember we all went out to the Viper Room, and it was me. It was the band, me, Joey, Glenn, and Blasco, who plays with Ozzy, and we went out, and he had just made this record, Danzig 5. And it just didn't sound like a band to me because it wasn't. You know, it's like he had Jerry Cantrell and all these other guests on it, some guests, and there was a lot of drum programming, and it didn't sound like the first 4 records where it was like guitar, bass, drums.
Yep.
And we were just in a conversation, and I remember saying like, yeah, that doesn't really sound like that record just doesn't really sound like a band. It just sounds more like a, you know, just doesn't sound like the old band.
Yeah.
And he took so much offense to that I got fired the next day.
Wow.
And how were you notified of that?
Joey. Because Joey and I were friends. He brought me in, so he was the one that had
He
to.
had
But I think him getting that
out.
pissed off. I mean, you know, somebody doesn't get that mad unless you're on point, right? I think
Well, it
maybe
was
you
like-
might have said something to him
Struck
that
a
he'd be like,
chord,
I
definitely,
think
yeah.
because, you know, it was his record. It was like, it was really more about him, even more so, because before it was like, you know, the same band for 4 records. And then those guys all left. And then it was Joey. And there was no like set band. So I think he might have felt, you know, kind of like this is more, you know, not vulnerable, but, you know, like in a sense, like I'm really laying it out here. This is my record. This is, you know, I played some guitar on it. I did this, I did that. And,
Right.
you know, so whatever. But then I got kicked out and then, you know, went back to work and then it just kept going like that. Like then Joey, it was always with Joey. Joey was
connection.
Did this project with this thing called Zilch, which was, so there's this band called X Japan, which is a huge, like the biggest rock band in Japan back in the 90s. And
have you heard of X Japan?
No, I've not.
I've never heard.
so this guy, I hadn't either. So then the guitar player was this guy Hide, and he was like as big as Michael Jackson which I heard, and none of this I believe. I was kind of like, what, really,
Right.
really? And so he came and he did this project with Joey and these other guys, and this guy Hide wanted to make like an American, like a Rob Zombie type of record. So he made this record. He went back to Japan. They were getting ready to do this tour, and he killed himself. He died of self-asphyxiation, like, you know, on a doorknob, like.
Oh, shit.
So, and then I guess later they wanted to still like honor his memory and do this record, and his brother said, okay, I approve. And then Joey calls me and is like, hey, do you want to play guitar in this thing? And I was like, oh, okay. And so I go down and he's like, all right, we're going to Japan in 10 days. And then he's telling me this whole story, and I'm like, wait, what? He goes, so there's this record executive guy, and if they look at you kind of funny, you know, but they're kind of judging you because you're kind of filling these big shoes and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, but I really didn't understand the bigness of it, and it was so funny, dude. But I told my uncle this whole story, and he's like, oh, Hide, I saw that guy's funeral on CNN. Like there was like 70,000 people at this guy's funeral in Japan. I was like, what?
And those the shoes
And my
you're
uncle
filling?
didn't even know anything about music, dude. He's just like, he was a librarian at Loyola Marymount. He was just like,
what?
dude, and I was like, really? And then I went to Japan, and Hide's brother, sweetheart,
Wow,
brings me.
dude.
I'm in a hotel room, and he brings me these VHS tapes, you know, just as a good gesture of goodwill. He's like, here's, you know. He didn't really speak English, so the interpreter was like, you know, he wants you to have these. These are his brother's shows from Tokyo Dome. And so Hide, as a solo artist, would sell out multiple nights at Tokyo Dome.
Fucking hell.
And I sat, dude, this was the day before the first show. I'm sitting in my hotel room by myself watching these VHS tapes of this guy that
Iconic.
Oh my.
yeah, dude.
Right.
And I was like literally in the
Insane.
streets, there's fucking merchandise everywhere. There's like vendors and
shit.
I was fucking freaking
Who is
out.
that would be here? Like, it would be like
Seriously, it'd be like a
Prince, Michael Jackson.
Or
It was kind of
anybody?
like Prince.
Yeah.
Like a Prince type of, except there was a lot of, anyways.
and you had no idea. So now
I had no idea until the night before I was playing my first show. And so, you know, then, but it went amazing. You know, there was like, people were into it and it was great. And that was my first introduction to being in Japan and all that. And then, you know, we went back a couple times. We did like a 3-week tour all over Japan.
But wait a minute,
it was incredible.
So when you're in your room watching that stuff, and it's really dawning on you what this person meant.
Yeah.
Okay, so then so overnight you wake up in the morning, and then you know you have to go do that thing. What was it like before you almost walked on stage, knowing that when you started to play, that everybody was expecting so much from you?
You know, I didn't.
Is that a legitimate question?
Yeah, no, I had to kind of block it out. You know what I mean? It's like, I think
it's fucking that's huge.
Yeah,
dude. Like fucking nobody does that. I mean, does anybody come out here and pretended to be Prince and well, not pretended, but has anybody come out in an honor of Prince and come out and played
replace
like
him,
Prince?
Basically, is what you're saying.
No,
right? Yeah,
no,
ridiculous. No, you can't.
No.
Yeah,
and you pulled it off apparently. So
yeah, it was cool, man. It was. I just had to block it out. Honestly, like I was freaking out.
Yeah,
fucking
of course.
freaking out. Dude.
Yeah,
like in the hotel room by myself.
And I don't think there's anything anybody can fucking say to
That's
you.
A great story though. You're like, who's this guy?
There's nothing anybody can say to you like, hey, don't, you know, it's not that big a deal, or don't worry about it.
Yeah, it is a big deal.
It's huge.
But I knew like the one thing was good is like I saw how he was as a performer. Like he would just fucking run up and down, and like he was like a maniac. He had this huge pink mohawk, and he was just fucking amazing.
Wow.
Like he would just run around like crazy, and he was here, he was there, blah blah. And that's kind of how I was on stage too. You know, I would run all over the place and jump off things and do this.
Yeah.
So I just was like, dude, I'm gonna fucking wear a kilt, and I'm gonna wear some big crazy boots, and you know, wear fucking all kinds of weird shit. And I had this big yellow guitar, and I was like, you know, fuck it, I'm gonna just go nuts and do my thing. And
they appreciate it.
Yeah, and people were into it, and that's what I did. So, but yeah, I was freaking out. But
well, I'm gonna tell you something. I've known a lot of musicians. You know, I've been friends with a lot of guitar players and stuff like that. But I don't think, and comedians even. But I don't think I've ever sat across from anybody who had more pressure to perform at one particular point than you did doing that.
yeah, it was a lot.
It
was a lot.
Hugely fucking significant performance, yeah.
But it was cool, man. I love, that's what like really made me love Japan, and just like, you know, the people and the culture, and like just learning little things. Like the coolest thing is that they do that I learned just culturally was like when people are standing around like in a little group, like even just like outside a bar, whatever, talking, they always open up the circle. That's like the thing is if someone comes in, you always open up the circle and let the other person in. Wow. You know, and it's like I've always, you know, and I really kind of paid attention to that kind of shit. Or the fans would, even if they were just super, you know, excited, like standing there, like, you know, off to the side, and they want to come talk to you, they would always just wait. And they didn't like just run up to you and be like, "Hey man,"
yeah, no rush.
You know, they're just like they wait, and they're like polite and they're respectful. And you know, you'd look over and be like, "Oh, come on, you know, I'll sign the whatever," you know. And they come over and they're excited, but they're just so, you know, respectful. And I love that thing. And they would always hand you the card with like a business card with two hands. It's as a sign of respect, like, you know, we're doing
really?
something. You know, here's what I do. You know, and I respect what you do, and like I'm giving you this, and maybe we can do something together. You know, like there was a lot of stuff I learned about the culture that I really, you know, appreciated going forward.
Which has no resemblance to how we live in the United States
at all.
None at all.
Because we haul ass to you.
Yeah, we just run you over and be like.
So Stephon Marbury. I don't know if you've seen there's a documentary on either Netflix or somewhere on Stephon Marbury. Who was very good, and then, you know, he was a troubled player with the Knicks, and every place he went, he was troubled. But also, like, the people in New York expected so much from him, and he couldn't make anybody happy that was a basketball fan in whatever team he went to. He ended up not wanting to, but he ended up going to Japan and playing basketball. And there, you know, in watching this documentary, he learned a lesson in his life that, almost like what you're talking about, that they loved him so much and they respected him so much that it changed his dynamic and the way that he thought about people was not the way that it was in the United States, where, you know, show us what you can do. They were appreciative of his talent. And when some kid or somebody said, like, I can't imagine, you know, meeting you and just showing him the respect, I was in tears, because you see what this is like, where everybody tries to bring you down here, but over there they respect you for who you are and they love you for your ability, which is, I wouldn't say contrary. It's not even anywhere near what's going on. So yeah, that's awesome, man, to hear you say that.
It was cool, man. It really kind of changed my thinking, you know, about a lot of stuff. But yeah, that was.
So
was Japan.
that was before you went to Velvet Revolver, of course. Now, not to jump ahead too far, but was that pressure relatable to what the pressure you had when you were in the band Velvet Revolver?
No,
to start with?
that was way worse.
Way worse, right?
The Velvet Revolver was easy.
He's a national icon, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not easy, but you know, right after Zilch, I was playing with Dave Navarro, who he and I have been friends for a long time. He had kind of done a solo thing, and we toured for his solo record.
Let me ask a question. So Dave Navarro, do you know who Doug Goodman is?
No.
His tour manager is skinny dude, wiry dude, wears shorts all the time.
I know who he
Jane's
is.
Addiction's tour manager, but what?
Yeah, I know who he is.
You been around him?
Not so much.
This motherfucker has the worst breath.
He's the greatest guy.
But does he have the worst breath?
That's.
This won't make it, but anyways. But I inherited him from almost. We had a guy die on tour, a manager that died on tour, and then another guy came in. What was that guy's name? Mark what?
Boy, I can't remember his last name. Mark.
Mark somebody, and then we ended up with Doug, but he worked with Janes.
Yeah.
I think he actually got in a fight with Perry Farrell and fucking pinned him.
He choked him out and got
Perry
fired the other day.
Fucking fired his ass for choking him out. And then he worked with
Oh,
Dave.
I know Doug.
Yeah.
Dude, wait, he's a guy that have you ever driven with him?
Yeah, fuck.
He drives like fucking crazy,
But
dude.
wait a minute. So we were
Right?
going from gig
That's
to
what I'm talking about.
He
right?
does.
Yeah,
Gig to
I know.
gig.
we were going
Yeah,
from gig
I
to
know
gig, and
Doug.
I would be in the backseat saying, "Hey, Doug, man, you gotta fucking
gotta
chill
slow
out,
down.
bro,
We're going
because
110 right now."
I'm not into the fucking whole road rage."
Yeah.
That motherfucker almost ran over a Marine in Washington D.C. Man.
Yeah.
You
know what's
is
funny?
there anything worse than running over a fucking military man?
I'll tell you a
when
funny
he has
story.
The green light?
Oh, he
The
cuts
funny thing about Doug is, I swear to God, I often think
the light bulb just went on. Was so classic.
dude. I remember I used to drive with Doug sometime in a van, and I remember thinking, because I went on tour with Janes too.
Oh, great.
And I remember Doug, and we would drive in a van. I would get like kind of nervous. I remember once I was sitting in the front seat, in the passenger seat, and I was like, I'm gonna sit in the back, you know, like just I don't have to fly through a windshield. And he was always like trying to find like always forward, you know, perpetual motion,
yeah.
like. And I swear to God, dude, once in a while I'll be driving and I'll kind of go into that mode, the Doug Goodman driving mode, and not in a bad way, but just think like, okay, I'm going to go forward here. And if I go over there, I'll go forward there. And it's so funny. Like, it's almost like I took a little bit of positive
Listen,
things
first of
from
all,
it, but
this motherfucker rarely bays. Would you say
He's a great guy, great tour manager.
Listen,
very eccentric. Yeah.
What if he wasn't a fucking great guy? And he wasn't a.
Then I wouldn't have
He's
said
a
that.
good tour manager,
Yeah,
but is he
yeah.
a great guy? You don't, motherfucker.
Well,
you don't know him. You've never been to his fucking house. So anyway, so we're on the road with him, and what he's good at is eliminating excessive costs. Like he'll drive a car instead of taking a guy who's going to drive you.
Yeah.
We were flying private, spending fucking millions of dollars. This guy's like, we're going to fly commercial. We're going to do this. We're going to get a bus. We're going to do that.
Yeah. You won't buy.
Are you going to fucking kiss his ass again, or are you going to let me tell the truth?
No. I'm just saying.
Say what you're going to say.
Well, he didn't want us to pay for a driver. He would drive himself as a tour manager, which not many people do that. So he did.
yeah.
And this motherfucker would eat shit that nobody would eat. We went to one of those anti-maze places on a road stop.
Yeah.
And he bought hot dogs wrapped in like dough.
Yeah.
And he and to be in the back seat and watch him eat, where he would just open his mouth and just put almost all of this hot dog in his
inside
mouth.
there, right there.
Like you're just like, I would look at him. I would look at Bryan. I would just be like, and he would just go, and
Just like it was the most delicious thing he's ever touched in his life, right?
So he bought Willie Davis was my favorite player in the Dodgers, and his name was Three Dog. So as we're driving, he just fucking powers 3 fucking dough wrapped hot dogs in his mouth.
Yeah.
So I go, hey Doug, I'm gonna call you Three Dog. And he goes, hang on a second. That motherfucker put 2 more.
He slid a couple more down there. He's on, what are you gonna call me now? We're like, well, that ruins the
I can't
nickname.
call you 5 Dog.
That doesn't.
Oh my God.
that jacked up the
But
nickname.
I had to talk to him, right? A lot of times in the car saying, hey man,
Roll down a window.
I'm not trying to die on the road. Right in the middle of the night.
He goes. He puts his foot
Dude,
to
I
the
know.
floor, and anybody
I
who's
know.
not like trying to get his, he's like mad at.
Yeah.
If they're
No, I
not
know.
trying to go 85, he's pissed at. He's like, get out of the way, motherfucker.
I know. We drove. I think we drove from. I want to say like San Diego or something back to L.A. I remember that. I remember being, and I was like, I can't go to sleep. I have to fucking stay
But he's
awake.
moving. He's moving.
Just in
Yeah.
case.
Yeah, he's moving. That guy doesn't waste any time.
Yeah.
And and without us, without George in the car, I mean, I've talked to him on the phone while he's on his way to the airport, and he's livid at people. I mean, he's
Yeah.
road ragey.
But I love that guy. He's the
know
It's
what?
hard not to love Doug. I
he's
mean,
awesome,
he's
dude.
Doug. He's Doug. He's just.
One time I was, I was really drunk, and we were in, were we in New York? We were at a hotel,
Yeah, because we were going to be in Canada the next night.
and I went in on him, man, like having bad breath and all this other bullshit. Like, hey, man, why don't you, take a bath and fucking brush your teeth and shit. And then the next morning, I think I fired him that night when I was
That
drunk.
night.
And then in the morning, he was going to drive us to the airport and,
He was still on the clock. He felt.
wish us
something.
well, and
He was waving us off.
I apologized to him for,
Did you remember that you had fired him?
yeah.
Oh.
But I'm a dude that I rarely.
And we were.
Well, I guess I do apologize when I'm wrong, but I think I don't think I was wrong. I just think I was.
But we were thrown down pretty
I
heavily.
just think
that
maybe
night.
I might have
Yeah,
went
yeah.
in too hard.
Yeah.
But did it change him? No. But he's
He's iconic as well. He's like.
Yeah.
I think if you wanted a tour manager that was not stealing,
Yeah.
because clearly you can look at him and say this motherfucker's not stealing,
Yeah.
but also lives really kind of. And he was married. No, he's married.
yeah.
And then he says, "Oh, my wife's gonna pick me up one time." Is this all gonna make it?
I don't know. We might have
But
to.
anyways, so we're at
edit it
LAX,
for Doug's radio.
and his old lady pulls up and gets out, and she's hot,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
and kisses him on the mouth with some breath that could not stop a clock. The motherfucker could unplug that motherfucker. Yeah, I won't be in, but anyways.
God
But he's
bless him.
But he's a
God
good,
bless him.
And everybody, I think, kind of anybody in rock, like around,
And he's 1 degree from everybody. He knows
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
Doug knows like literally
Dave
everybody in the
and
rock.
James, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a good dude.
And everybody loves him. I mean, every seat.
So Doug doesn't drink. Doug's never drank. Doug's never smoked. What made you? Now you've been clean for, you said, 31 years.
Yeah.
Where were you before, and then what was that point that?
I mean, I probably started
It's
when
probably
I was
private, but the thing is, I think the thing with rock, man, is like, is it mandatory? Like in knowing Eddie, Van Halen God love him, man, and knowing in the beginning that they were a band trying to make it, and then when Van Halen 1 comes out, and then they're on the road, that they just started to just be, they're legendary.
Yeah.
But what was the difference between, like, when they were at the Starwood or they were at the Whiskey or any band that makes it, and then when you make it and you have some funds, like, you just go out of your mind. He and I did it. Well, he and I did it. But what is that, dude?
Well,
like,
the irony is, I never toured drunk. I always aspired to it, and I think to answer that question specifically, I think that, as I was growing up, and started drinking young, like 12, 13, and then smoking pot, and then when punk rock came, is just like every drug was available in those clubs, going to clubs twice a week, you could get whatever you wanted. And it was great. Everything was fun. Everything was it was great. And then for me, what happened was, it started to become a habit, and then I just started doing it every day. And then it was like, I'd pass out, and then I'd wake up, and then I'd drink first thing in the morning, and I'd drink all day. Then I'd pass out, and then I'd do it again. The last couple of years were like that. And, but I had always aspired to go on tour. And I think because, to answer your question is, you're once you start going on tour, it's like you don't have to, I was aspiring to that moment when I got a guy like Doug looking after me, and all I got to do, I can sleep late, and all I got to do is really perform for an hour at night. I mean, that in my limited view of what really happens.
Absolutely.
You don't know about press and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, I was like, oh, I'll get to sleep late, and I just have some dude wake me up and tell me where to be and give me a piece of paper that says, you'll be here at 5 o'clock, and then at 5:15 you go here.
Right.
And that was the dream. Right, to just, and then play a show, and then pass out, and then do it all over again. But unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way. And so for me, I was in a band with a guy that was sober, and I was still working at Tower Video, my day job, and I was in this band, and it just got really bad. And for me, it was like every day I did something that I never planned to do. According to my own moral compass, I was like, oh, I'm going to steal some, I never woke up and said, I'm going to crash my car today, and I'm going to cheat on my girlfriend, and I'm going to steal some stuff from my mom to buy some drugs, and I'm going to do, but I started doing all that stuff, and being ashamed of it, and then drinking more, and then and it was just this spiral, and then it just kept going and kept going and kept going, and then at the end, I just hated myself. And I remember my last drink, I was sitting on my couch, and I had alcohol poisoning.
Your last drink?
Yeah. I'd had alcohol poisoning for like the fucking, 20th time or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was sitting on my couch, and I was holding this Miller Genuine Draft, and I was like, this, and I knew, like, this is the only thing in the world that's going to make me feel okay, But I couldn't keep it down because I was so sick, I was like gagging and I was taking little sips of it, and I got like halfway done. It took me like an hour, and I was just like so sick. And I just thought, I can't imagine living the rest of my life this way, but I also can't imagine not drinking for the rest of my life. And so I was at this impasse, and I called the guy I was in a band with, this guy, John. And I was like, dude, I think I need to get sober or whatever. Wow. And he's like, he got all excited, because we were in a band together, and he was like in his first year sober, and I was just a train wreck, every day.
But as you were kind of a train wreck, did people almost admire that? Like, oh, this dude's fucking crazy, man. Like, this guy.
Not at that point. First, when you're first drinking and it's fun, and like everyone's doing funny shit, and it's fun. But I was the guy, when I drank, would, like, if I saw you and we were friends and I saw you at a club like in downtown, I would fucking get so excited to see you that I would run as fast as I could across the parking lot, and I would tackle you. And you're just like, you're there to go out. You might have a girl with you. You're just like, hey, what's up? And you see this guy running at you full speed, like, hey, what's up, dude? And then you're like, oh shit. And I fucking literally tackle you, and then you're bleeding, and you got a big scrape on your elbow. You hit your head, and you're just like, fuck this guy. And I would do that shit constantly in the last couple of years of drinking. I would just tackle people and love on people way too hard, and that's how I was, and get kicked out of places and banned from places, and but I was never angry. I was just like, oh dude, what's up? I was like, and so and then that's where I was at. And then this dude was like, got all excited, and he's like, all right, dude, we're going to go, we'll go to the thing, and we'll...
we go to meetings and stuff?
Yeah, like we'll go to a meeting, and, and then he he was like, all right, just don't drink today. And I was like, I already did. And he's like, all right, just go to sleep. You know, I was like, I went to sleep.
Yeah, okay.
And he woke up and he's like, all right, we'll go tomorrow. And then he took me, you know, and like I started going and that was it. And just ever since, you know, I've just been sober.
But I think the further you get away from it, like, you know, if you said, you know, oh, I already did, or I did that, and then the further you get away from it, if you go a day without drinking, you go another day without drinking, and the further you get away from it, is it the less that you wanted, you think?
I mean, for me, honestly, I remember very clearly that, you know, look, you know, when you drink and do a lot of drugs on a daily basis, and you constantly are, you know, doing things that you're not cool with, and you have all this shame and all this stuff happens, you feel like a scumbag, and then you quit drinking and you feel like a sober scumbag. And that's the thing that I had to, that's where, you know, what I got out of going to these things that I try and skirt around, you know, the way, you know, the things, because it's anonymous and whatever, but, you know, and, but what I learned there was these tools to kind of deal with the fact that now I just feel like a sober scumbag. You know what I mean? I still feel like that guy that did all those fucked up things, you know, and how do I deal with that? And that's what I learned. And I felt kind of hopeless. The thing that I really got.
I don't know, man. How do you say you feel like a sober scumbag? But because if some, I've never heard anybody say anything other than I'm sober. I never heard anybody say I'm sober, but I feel like I'm depressed, or I never had anybody put an emotion behind I'm sober. Yeah. And you just said I feel like a sober scumbag.
Well, because, you know, when you're hitting bottom, right, and you're really like going downhill, you know, if you're so bad to a point where you stop, you know, you must feel pretty fucking bad, right?
Right.
So, and those things you do, that's become your life. I am the guy who steals from my mom. I am the guy that, you know, cheats on my girlfriend. I am the guy that does all these things. You don't necessarily go like, oh, well, it's just because I drink and now I don't drink and now I'm normal. You know, it's like you feel like you're the guy that people don't want around because you tackle them in the parking lot. You're the guy that never can pay your rent. You're the guy that everyone's giving you the disapproving head nod whenever they see you. And that's how you feel. And all of a sudden you take away the drugs and alcohol, you feel the same, you know, until you... When I got sober, they said to me, you never have to feel as hopeless as you did the day before you quit drinking again. If you know, do the thing and you, and I haven't, but you know, it's like, I think
some people you still.
Yeah. In early sobriety, it's like for me, it was like, I felt kind of hopeless, you know, and shitty all day. And then I would get these like little windows of hope, you know, it'd be like, oh, maybe it's going to be okay. Maybe this is going to work out. Maybe, you know, well, I feel okay. And then you start thinking again and you're like, oh, yeah, but you're kind of a scumbag and, you know, whatever it is. Wow. And then you would slowly start to deal with the things and realize like, okay, I'm not a scumbag. It's just like I did those things because I was drunk all the time. And those are really, that's not how I want to be, or that's not who I am. But those are things I did because I was in a fucking blackout, you know, all day, all the time, you know? And so you slowly kind of learn how to live sober, basically. Because I didn't know how to do anything sober, dude. I didn't know how to go on a date. I didn't know how to be in a relationship. I didn't know how to go to the market. I didn't know how to be bored. I didn't know how to celebrate. I didn't know how to literally do anything sober because I didn't, because I was just drunk all day long, every day.
Well, I'm going to say something I've never said before. That when I would meet somebody and I would go out with them, I would say to myself, I'm good, but I don't want them to see me drunk. And times when we'd go out and I would get drunk and get way drunk, and that's what I didn't want them to see. But they saw it early because I couldn't help not going out and being drunk, and then that person would remove themselves. But I tried. But there was no way that I was going to be successful at it because every time I went out, I got fucking hammered. Yeah. So I would say, oh, this girl's great, man. You know, I just don't want her to see the drunk me. Yeah. And she would right away, if not the first time, you know, the second time. So,
yeah. I mean, you know.
So in your years, though, it's been over
motherfucker, don't say it like you weren't with me. You know, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've
He's just saying like, oh,
no,
but you know what I
yeah.
mean. And I knew, man, I knew if I really liked somebody that I would say, not I hope that.
Just make sure you're like,
and I couldn't help it.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it.
Yeah, I mean, you do all those things to try and like time it out right, or like, well, if I eat a bunch before I go on the date and then I don't drink beforehand or what,
hold it off
like,
for a minute.
But for me, it was just like, for me personally, it's just like I never understood social drinking.
No, but listen,
I never had a plan.
But I mean, I don't think there is social. I mean, if somebody's gonna say, social drinking, but
not the way we drink. I mean, like you said, social drinking is like a couple drinks, and you're like, "Hey, good night, everybody."
But it's like that, dude. Yeah. It's like you drank it like you're not 5 in, and you're not just like
throwing.
Like him. I just pointed to him.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. But you guys are like like kind of together, and it's not like, yeah, dude, I fucking love you, man. You're fucking great, man. You're the best. Like. Oh man, I love you.
So in those 3 decades, though, have you, like I said earlier, you're going to meetings early. Do you still tap into that?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, and it's a lot of, I remember someone saying to me like, someone was like, oh, you don't need to still go to meetings. You're good, blah blah. And I'm like, and it's like this other thing I heard this old timer say like. Yeah, but what if I cut out the wrong thing? What if I cut out the wrong meat? What if I cut out like the thing? And I've had experience where, I've had some time and stopped going to stop doing the things that I did in my first year that really like helped me. And, and my head got really loud and I felt kind of nuts and wanted some relief from how I started feeling a little nuts, and then I just went back and started doing the same things and felt better.
So when you were with yourself, and I think you'll understand this.
Yes.
When you were with yourself, did you not feel you were alone because when you drank, you could wake up in the morning and go, man, I was really fucking tore up. Last night I can take a shower and I can kind of drink coffee and I can try to eat or get right. You're almost having an internal dialogue with yourself to kind of make it okay, but it's not okay, right? I think when people wake up and they're hungover, like what we did, like we're on the road and
we call each other.
End up in this place, call each other, and go, in the afternoon, like, how were you? And it's like, I struggled in the morning and stuff like that. But
I think for me it was different though, because I never felt like that. I always was like, I'd wake up and I would be either still drunk or a little hungover.
Okay.
Because I never really got super hungover. I just went straight to alcohol poisoning. I can't drink for 2 days and I'm puking up foam and whatever.
Yeah.
But I just woke up and I was like, okay, I need a drink. For me, that's where I was. Like the last couple years was just like, St. Ides had just come out. I remember I worked at Tower Video, dude, and the only liquor store on this side of like Washington Boulevard that sold St. Ides was right across the street from me. They sold Cisco, they sold St. Ides, and that's where I would go. And, I would just drink the next day. I would drink a couple beers before I went to work, and then I would drink, and
before Tower Video.
Yeah.
So you'd be hammered.
But was that related to what did you relate it now that you've been sober so long? What was that related to? Was it related
alcoholism?
Okay.
I don't know.
No.
For
was
me,
it related to growing up? No. Was it related to? It was just related to just being drunk.
I think so, dude. Like, because I've talked to different people.
Because somebody said, oh, this happened, or
like childhood trauma.
Exactly.
Blah, blah.
Exactly.
Like as much as I talk shit about my childhood, it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I drank with those dudes at 13. I'm still friends with a lot of the guys. We go out, and we have a good time. It wasn't because, maybe I didn't know my mom or my dad. I wasn't off the hook. I didn't, really do a lot of, it was just
fun.
Kind of just the way it was, yeah.
Same with me.
Fun.
I drank because it was like, when I started drinking, it wasn't like, I've heard a lot of people have that experience where it's like, oh, I finally felt comfortable in my own skin and I finally was like, everything was okay. And then but for me, it was like, oh, this is fun. This is like, everything's a little more fun, a little looser, blah, blah, blah. And I just went from there. And I think that, you know, there's kind of this maybe imaginary line between hard drinker and alcoholic that you never see, you know, and not even to say if I knew where it was, I would stop there. I'd probably just blow past it and be like, oh, whatever.
Yeah,
I'll be fine. And, you know, but for me, there was, like, my parents got divorced when I was young, but my dad was always around, dude. He lived in the Oakwood apartments, like 2 blocks away, and he would take me to school every day still, and he was like, came to every show I ever played, and, you know, was there we would the whole time. Like, you know, like, I'd stay at his house once a week, and my mom got remarried, and then, you know, got remarried again later. And my stepdad, I got along with great. It's like, it was just because I think I crossed the line and I just wasn't a straight up
when
alcoholic.
you performed, you didn't perform, you weren't high when you performed.
I mean, I was when I was drinking. When I was drinking, I did everything drunk.
Did you do drugs too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I drank. I had, you know, it's like that thing I said, you know, I played a guitar and, you know, like, recorded it on acid.
Sure.
I did, dude. I did. There was other stuff like when I was in that band that I was like kind of hitting bottom, and my buddy was sober. I remember we would go to San Diego all the time and play, and I would like do coke and stay up all night, and then the next day I would play, and I would still be on coke and drinking, and I was like, you know, shredding. I was like, oh, it's awesome, you know, like. And then I would hear recordings of it afterwards, and I was like, it was horrible, like so bad.
But in the moment, though, like we've known musicians who played drunk every single gig they had, and then when they were sober, they tripped because like people are looking at me. Was it more fun to play when you were hammered or when you were sober, knowing that this is it, I'm in the moment? Because we've had people say the opposite.
Well, I don't know. You know, like you went to the US Festival, you saw Van Halen there, right?
Yeah.
So the legend of that they got paid $1.5 million.
Yeah, I remember.
But that David Lee Roth was drunk, which it doesn't look like it. But that Ed played great, and I don't think Eddie was a drinker as much as he maybe was into the drug. I don't want to say, man, got arrested. So I would just say that Ed was never sloppy in that time. That even seeing that he played great.
Yeah.
And they said that Dave was drunk, but they sounded great.
Yeah.
But whatever, it just became a part of every musician's ritual of doing things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the moment, which would you think you were killing it when you're high, even though it sounded like shit later? But was it more fun to play high or sober? I guess what I'm asking.
We never played sober.
No, you played sober after. I mean,
yeah, I think that it was probably more fun to play when I was drinking because it was more. Look, I'll be honest, you know, it's like if a genie came out of this beer can and said, "I'll grant you 3 wishes," I guarantee you one of them would be, I want to be able to drink and do stuff the way I used to and not have my life fall apart. You know what I mean? Because to me, it's like, to me, drinking is like driving. You know, it's like driving is a privilege that you earn. You prove to the state, like, I'm competent to drive this 6,000-pound piece of metal around the streets.
Sure. Projectile.
You know, and you screw up too many times and they take the privilege away. And for me, that's how I look at drinking. Like, I just abuse the shit out of it, and it got taken away, you know, unfortunately. But did I enjoy it? Would I love to be able to do it, you know, with impunity and not have it ruin my life at all? Sure, if I could, but I can't, because I know that if I drank here, I would have to Uber home because I'd say like, oh, what are you guys doing after the show? You know, and I would because I know myself, and I know that by the time, you know, 6 o'clock rolled around, I would be throwing up in the bathroom, and you know, I'd go home and pass out. I have to hide it from my wife and kids.
Sure. And
then the next day, I would wake up with a hangover, and I'd go down to Sportsman's Lodge and fucking start drinking a Bloody Mary.
That's awesome. Okay, so how did you meet your? Can I ask how you met your wife? And
Joey Castillo. It's all back to Joey
It's all
Castillo,
Joey.
dude.
Serious.
I swear
That's
to God, dude. Like,
That's awesome.
his wife, no, his girlfriend at the time owned this this shoe boutique called Diavolina that was in Hollywood. Joey said to me, dude, I know this girl. I think she works at Evie's shop. You're gonna love this girl, you know. And I was like, oh, what's her deal? And she's like, oh, he goes, I think she lives with her ex-boyfriend, but they're broken up, and like she still goes out with other people, but I think they're broke. I was like, dude, I don't even want to meet her. You know, I don't want anything to do with it because it sounds like a bunch of drama to me. And then a year later, Joey and his girlfriend at the time, their birthdays were at the same time. So they had this joint birthday party at the Belmont, our buddy's restaurant on La Cienega. And
Where's that? The Belmont.
like La Cienega between Santa Monica and Melrose.
It's still there?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it is.
I think it is.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
But yeah, so and then he's like, oh, that's the girl I was telling you about, you know, at the bar. And she was with like her brother and 5 friends. So I was like, oh, no, it's cool. I don't want to meet her. You know, it's like I'm going to fucking walk up in the middle of the group. Hey, it's nice to meet you. And so I just was like, oh, whatever. And then at some point we met, and then I walked away, and then we did the kind of like the look back, you know, with the little, the eyes meeting.
Type thing, yeah.
And that was it. The next day I called Joey's girlfriend and I said, hey, you know, can you ask that girl, Chris, if I can get her number? Cause I want to, you know, take her out. And then I ended up going out with her, and that was it, dude. And we started dating like, I think 3 months before I got in Velvet Revolver. And
Beautiful.
yeah, it was great. And we've been together ever since.
And did you have other relationships with girls that you know that were long term, or were you in love?
I think yeah, I've had other, but I think the longest relationship ever was like a couple years maybe. But you know, I remember getting past like the 4-year mark with my wife.
Did you think that the way you grew up, that were you not connected to people or connected to women, or you were, but they were like when you were drinking?
I was always into the I've always been like a softie in that way, and been like into the monogamous relationship, and like, you know, like I'm just gonna have one girlfriend. I couldn't like I knew dudes that were like sport fucking girls, and I was like, oh, I can't do it. I just too much of a conscience, dude. I'd just be like, oh, I feel bad. Oh, you know, and maybe when you're drunk and you go through periods where you're like, you have one night stands, or you can pull it off, or you're single, whatever. But I just was always into, like, that was my dream, you know? My dream was like, someday I'm going to meet a cool chick.
Right.
I'm going to get a little house. I'm like a 2-bedroom house.
Right.
And I want to be able to eat out, like nothing fancy, like Pollo Loco or whatever, you know? I just want to be able to, you know, eat out when I want and meet some cool chick, and maybe, you know, have some kids someday and have a little house.
Right.
Like that was my dream.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, that was.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's
Really?
awesome, man. How old are your kids?
My son will be 13 next month, so 12 and 11 and 12.
Yeah.
My daughter just turned 11.
Musically inclined, or?
It's so funny, dude. We've been forcing my son to play guitar. He takes lessons once a week. We just stopped the lessons for over a year. He's played every instrument. He's had lessons playing guitar, then he did drums, then he did bass, and he did the rock band thing at school where they'd be in a band, they'd learn a song. And he just, he's weird because anything that he picks up, he gets, you know, he's good at it. He's good at everything, but he's just not that into it. You know what I mean? He's just not into playing it. Like, he could play it. Even the guitar teacher was like, he can get it, but he just never practices.
Sure, yeah.
You know, but he can play a chord, and he can do this, he can do that.
So when you have your kids and, you know, everything that we talked about, do you think back to the family in Iowa? Do you think about all that, like your lineage back?
I do. It's funny because when I was on tour, you know, I remember we played in Des Moines, and my grandmother still lives there, and my aunt and this big extended family. It's like 50, 60 people. All the Valdezes and the Torreses. And you know, they all are like, these 3 are cops and these 3, you know, are they own a business and these whatever. And it's weird, man, because it's like I remember going back and, you know, my aunt was like, oh, we're having a party, you know, like, and it was just like this fucking, I mean, you know how it is. It's just like, it's amazing, you know. It's just like everyone's like, "Hey, you know, like, how do you do? Oh, what's up?" You know, and it's just like everyone's all happy to see you and talking about you like you've been there the whole time and just like loving on you, and it was incredible, you know. And you know, and then I kind of stayed in touch with some of the, you know, extended family, the cousins and stuff, and then, you know, but I haven't gone back a lot, and I haven't gone back with my kids, and now and then my grandmother's, you know, she's fucking 90 something now. And I don't know if she's going to be around much longer. And what sucks about, you know, the virus and everything is, you know, I thought about flying out there, you know, but I haven't. And, you know, I think I'm always a little conflicted, you know, about it, to be honest. You know, some days I'm like, oh, I should do this, I should do that, and blah, blah, and then I get caught up in my life, and I don't.
Well, you know, I was born at General Hospital. I didn't know my father. I didn't know my mother. My grandparents raised me. My grandfather wasn't biological, but in creating, you know, my identity through my culture, and through, you know. The clubs in the 80s, and then meeting Arsenio, and then doing, you know, Why You Crying and all that stuff about the parties in the backyard and all that stuff that brought, you know, me success and all that, and then the show and all that stuff. But, you know, I would be considered the ultimate Chicano in LA. But as the ultimate Chicano, I just want to tell you, man, that I'm proud of who you are and what you became.
Thanks, man. That means a lot.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
It means a lot to me too. Emotional.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, I think it's a deep rooted thing. You know what I mean? When you really kind of, you know, and it's like, I admire you the way you've kind of connected so deeply with your own culture. And it's something that, you know, I wish had done more of, you know, and it's like, it's funny, you know, because well, I laughed this year.
You did it, man.
No, but I laughed this year. I laughed because, you know, in the last 4 years, it's like, then you've got this my last name is Kushner, and it's just like, and then sometimes people are like, oh, any relation? Or it's almost like I have to say it first, you know, and like say, oh, no relation. And there was a time where, I like 25 years ago or something, I had put back my mom's maiden name into my name. Yeah. So it was Dave Torres Kushner. You know, just to kind of honor that side. And, you know, that's what my tattoo right here says Torres. And so, and believe me, if any time, you know, recently I'm like, oh, maybe I need to put that back in.
Yeah.
You know? And then, like,
but you know what, man? It's
you know
what's
what I mean?
in somebody's fucking...
Exactly.
It's
You're
what's
already
in somebody's
carrying
heart,
it.
bro.
Yeah.
Like, you know, for me to be able to recreate those backyard parties where they're like, so you couldn't even bring ice, you know, somebody shows up and they fucking eat everything. Those were the things that made me proud to be a Chicano.
Yeah.
But all the shit that we've been talking about these last 2 hours make me prouder to be Chicano.
Thanks, man.
So,
that means a lot, because I miss those parties. You know, it's like, and that's what was the great thing about when I was drinking, you know, because it was like when I grew up, for instance, you know, I grew up in you know, I guess it's Koreatown now, but it wasn't Koreatown then. And it was like, you know,
Right, yeah.
it was
where was it? Because
like First in Vermont,
Yeah.
right where Virgil Junior High is. Like, I lived around the corner from Virgil.
Yeah.
And it was like when I grew up, dude, there was no, I had one white friend. His name was Timmy. He had red hair. He had a hook. He had a hook. He had with no arm.
Oh,
one of his arms.
The
He was like
didn't have an arm as a kid?
literally had one of those hooks like this,
yeah.
you know. And he had red hair and freckles. And I swear to God, that was my only white friend growing up because everyone was either black or Chinese or Mexican, you know. And it was great, you know. That was like how I grew up, like being part of the Chinese New Year parade because my friend's dad was part of that or whatever it was. That's how I got into, like, my first music I was ever into was Earth, Wind and Fire, you know, Sly and the Family Stone, all those bands, the Brothers Johnson, because my best friend was black and he had 2 older brothers and that's all they listened to. Stevie Wonder, all that shit was like, that's like in my house, that's what I listen to now most of the time because it's like Marvin Gaye, all that stuff because it's so, you know, ingrained in me.
Listen, man, you know, I was an only child. My grandfather, who wasn't biological, his nephew worked at a record pressing plant in Van Nuys. So he would always come and visit, you know, his uncle, whatever that, you know, he wasn't related to me, but Raul. And he would bring misprinted albums. And this is from like the early 70s. Songs in the Key of Life, Captain Fantastic, Toto, all of these records that I had in junior high before anybody had them. And to sit back in that room over there in fucking Hager Street with a little record player and be playing these things that were knockoffs, just like, I have a love of music that nobody really knows, but was that the beginning of it? I'm not sure, but really fucking amazing shit, man. To be able to sit back there and hear songs of the Key of Life, or and even when Eddie and I, you know, would play golf, and I told him that the first time I heard Van Halen 1 and I put it on my record player and I heard the fucking horn, that I ran to the window and looked at the window because I thought somebody was outside. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh no, man, we did that, you know, those fucking horns, man." And I fucking thought something was going on outside. That my whole education, Kiss, and all of that stuff, Ted Nugent, and all, you know, Ted and I are friends, and everybody's like, "Hey, that fucker's a Republican." It's like, you know what, man, I'm into the music, man. Yeah. And that cat's always been great too. The guys I went to high school with, remember went to go see him? Yeah. Fucking, so it's not politics, man. It's like, music is music.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, you know, like, so that's what I was saying is like, so, and then when I moved to DC for Arlington, Virginia when I was 10, and that was a culture shock for me because there was it was all what, I went to an elementary.
How'd you end up
because
over there?
So my mom got remarried when I was like 5. And then when I was 10, my stepdad got a job at the White House. When Jimmy Carter was in office.
Oh my God!
I was in the inauguration parade.
Oh my gosh!
When Jimmy Carter got elected, because they're like, "Oh well, we need a Mexican kid on the float." You know what I mean? Like there was like a float, and I remember I saw a picture of it, dude. I have a Rams beanie on, and they're like, I'm like, "Oh, I'm only half Mexican," and they're like,
LA
"Oh yeah,
proud,
but, you know,
still,
they put me on the float in the."
You didn't go to the inauguration at the Kennedy Center, did you? You did?
No. It was just like a parade, right. And I sat on a like a hayride, you know, with a bunch of other kids.
Wow,
and,
that's amazing.
You know, but it was a culture shock for me because there was 2 black girls in my whole elementary school. That was it, dude. Everyone was white, and that for me was like, wait, this is weird.
Yeah,
and then I came back when I was 12 because my parents got divorced. My stepdad stayed there. He still lives there. Then me and my mom came back, and then we lived in the same house back on Vermont. And then that's when I started going to Bancroft. And, you know, then it was like I had, again, and then when I was drinking and hanging out with the Joey and all those dudes, it was just like when I was a kid, you know, it was like everyone was all different races, all different, you know, it was fucking like this guy's Italian and that guy's, you know, Mexican and that guy's black. It was just like a big melting pot. And it was those kind of parties, like, you know, like, oh, I'm going to go down to, you know, I'm going to this butcher and getting like carne asada and, you know, like all this stuff. And it was like,
did you have, was Gil Cedillo in your band?
No,
like horns?
No,
You never had horns in your band?
I don't know. I don't know that guy.
Oh. Because I thought, I heard that maybe you had horns in your... You never had a band? Well, who has a band with horns in those times?
No.
But,
No, I did. I remember when I was in the Love Hogs, we had Tommy Lee produced part of our first record.
Yeah, I
So
read
this was
that
like,
about that.
yeah,
That's amazing.
1990.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah.
91.
How did that
Tommy
happen?
Lee
Fucking
produced it,
Tommy
yeah.
Lee, man.
Because so our band's was kind of like Faith No More, like that vibe.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, sure.
And the guy Tom Zutaut, who signed Motley and Guns N' Roses at Geffen, he I guess at the time Tommy was looking for a band to produce, and somehow he came to check us out, and he liked us because we were kind of like funk and metal and like all these things that he was into, and then we Geffen offered us a demo deal, you know, where they give you like $15,000 to do 3 songs.
Yeah.
And we were like, we don't want a demo deal. We want like a straight up record deal. And I remember Tom was like, well, if you guys, Tommy's really pissed. If you don't do the demo, you know, thing, then he's not going to want to be a part of it. And we're like, really? And then we find out later, like, he was like, no, dude, I'll produce, you know, you want to do this
he didn't
record
care.
deal? He didn't care. So then he ended up producing a few songs on our record, and it was incredible. But we had this guy, Fernando, that had played with a later version of Earth, Wind, and Fire, played horns on one of the sections. It was killer to like be in the studio watching, you know, someone record horns and really like knowing what they did, and it was incredible.
Well,
sure,
here's the ultimate question of any rock person. Were you into Thin Lizzy or was that...
Yeah.
You were
Yeah,
into
because
Thin
I was
Lizzy?
always into
Any fucking rock person that you meet and you say, hey, dude, were you into Thin Lizzy? And if they say yes, like, you're in a group of motherfuckers that are like almost like the Illuminati
Get ready
of rock.
a made man already.
well, it's Gary Moore, dude.
Oh,
That
dude.
dude is just like,
He's unbelievable,
I mean,
man.
I was like into like his solo records, and there's this song called "End of the World," where it's like this. There's certain, you know, guitar solos where you hear it where it just makes you want to like run your head through a wall,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's just like so deep emotion. Like that's how I feel with
So that's a dude, Gary Moore is a dude that nobody talks about as a fucking great guitar player when you
one
talk
of my
about the greatest
favorites.
guitar players, but one of the
yeah.
best, right?
all time, because it's just like, you know, okay, so there's a song, Electric Eye, right? The Judas Priest song. When you listen to that solo in that song, it just sounds like the fucking fretboard's like tearing apart. It's just like, it sounds like he's struggling so hard to fucking squeeze these notes out. And when I would listen to Gary Moore, that's how it sounds like to me. You know, it's like, it's just like, there's so much.
And how is
passion
that
in
possible, man? How does the guy do that?
I don't know, dude.
Why is the fretboard or the ability for somebody to, how is one dude that much better than everybody else, bro?
I don't know, because what's
Right?
what's
Why is-
even weirder to me is that they're not all like Gary Moore is not like that in every song. And Glenn Tipton was not like that in every solo that he did in Judas Priest. There's just like this moment, you know, and I don't know if it's divine intervention or what it is, but it's like, for me, I just hear that moment because it's like, you know, it's like the first time you do a certain drug and then you're always chasing that
Right.
high. It's
Right.
like,
Right.
for me, it's like I'm always chasing that solo, and I listen to other Judas Priest songs. I'm like, not so much.
So older than you guys, at the Santa Monica Civic, we go see Robin Trower. Fucking amazing.
yeah.
Underrated.
Badass, dude.
Underrated. Bridget said
Yeah.
That's why I have a Rotovite pedal. Like,
Oh, right.
Right?
yeah.
Day of the Eagle. And then I saw fucking Thin Lizzy live and dangerous at the Santa Monica Civic.
Oof.
And it sounded like Live and Dangerous. Does
Yeah.
anyone here have any Irish? And it was so unbelievable, man. And I went with all the guys I was in high school with.
Yeah.
And Phil had the black pants, he had the white thing, he had the bass up high. Oh, dun 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 I mean, just amazing, man.
Yeah.
Like fucking. So of all the concerts that I've seen, and I've seen everybody, that Thin Lizzy is the Kevin Bacon of 6 Degrees of Separation. You know, they always go,
Yeah,
you
sure.
know.
If you
I
like
remember I
him.
saw Grohl over there, and I said, hey, or Morello over there in the Burbank Airport. We're talking about Thin Lizzy, and it's like anybody who rocks Thin Lizzy's like
Yeah.
the band.
Mm-hmm.
What's the yeah? I mean, but even with Gary Moore though, dude. Like I would listen to Thin Lizzy and try and hear that thing I heard in that song, you know, and I don't hear it as much in the, you know, it's like it's more. It's a little like reserved. And
They were a
kinda
little bit
pulled back.
jazz. They were a little bit fucking jazzy,
Yeah.
man. Thin Lizzy was a little bit. The boys are back in town. It's rock, but a lot of those
It's
stuff
laid
like
back.
still dancing
Right.
the moonlight.
It's kind of Steely Dan.
Boz
It's
Scaggs,
Steely
You know what I
Dan.
mean?
Yeah,
It's like
you
the
know,
Steely
yeah,
Dan
yeah.
of rock.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, is there a solo like you were talking about the other guys who just nailed it? Is there one of your own that you go, oh yeah, that's my moniker. That's the one.
of my own?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say when I did that record, that Electric Love Hogs record,
Mm-hmm.
there's a song called Tribal Monkey, which was the single.
Yeah, right.
And I did a solo in there that I really is probably my favorite.
And that's the one you were like, I was in the moment. That's like,
yeah. Yeah,
And-
for me.
And when you think back on that solo when you were recording it, were you thinking anything, or was that just like a bleh, just art?
No, I don't. You know, you just like I said, you do what you do, and it's like great art. I think. Like I remember my mom's third husband. He's like, you know, I just show up every day. He was a painter, and he's like, I show up every day, and you know, you just show up enough times, and once in a while, something great shows up too. You know, it's just who knows when it's going to show up. But that's the thing, you know, because if it just showed up great all the time, it wouldn't be as special.
Yeah.
You know.
So, what were you gonna do, man? You were gonna do Set Decker? What were you gonna?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna. So when.
Let's
so-
ask the proper question. Well, ask him the proper question, and so we get
Well,
it right.
yeah,
It's not offhanded.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
very important.
Exactly. I believe that you wanted to join a set builders union.
What do you
is
mean?
I
I
found.
believe, motherfucker.
Yes.
You didn't even know, man.
I had heard that you
Wait a
wanted
minute.
to
Why don't you
join.
just ask him? I heard you
Because
were.
on a podcast, on another podcast, I heard you talk about the fact that you want to
Hey,
belong to the set
can we-
builders union.
Hang on a second. Hey, Greg, how many of these have we done?
Okay.
You know what, man? In 10 fucking episodes, like you have not gotten better at asking a fucking question.
I have not managed to get any better.
of a guy who, I mean, how long we been talking? It's fucking like 10:30 at night.
2 hours.
It's probably
We've been here
dark
for
out.
fucking 9 hours
And I've
already.
been going through this question in my head the whole 2 hours. No kidding. So,
I think he wants you to ask about the beginning of
No.
Revolver.
You know what, man? No.
No, I was
It's
gonna
ju-
go there.
You know what? Because there's always a fork in the road in somebody's life where you either do or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
An
you see what I
impasse,
mean?
if you will.
Motherfucker, you see?
well, that's why it's not
And it's
Bryan
not because
Kellen's. Oh my God.
It's not
I-
because I'm a universal figure que la chingada. Ask him.
in everyone's life, there seems to be a fork in the road.
There's a
An impasse,
there's
if
a,
you will.
yeah,
If you will.
There's a do or you don't. There's a
Did or didn't.
do I go buy a hammer or do I
Right?
Or do I pick up this axe?
Tell us about
ask
your
him.
history
Ask
in
him.
art department
oh my,
on sets.
it's so awful, man.
Duh.
Well, I'm not sure. Well,
Yeah.
how would we phrase the question? Like, at some point, you have to decide whether you continue with what you need to do or what you love.
Here's what happened. So,
Because it had to be at a point where it's a little bit down, right?
Well, what happened was, so when I did that Zilch gig, right? I did that thing in Japan. We did
And
a
you know,
three.
he's just trying to include you to make you.
Yeah, it's
a part
really
of the
cool of him to do
conversation.
that.
You're right here.
He's such a
Like,
nice
you know
guy.
what? 'Cause he could just be me and
No,
him,
but
and-
he-
should be.
And you
I
be
think.
right there like
I
some
think-
fucking like garnish. Eh?
I
You'd be
was
like,
ready
like
to
that
hide
fucking-
underneath the table.
Fucking cilantro. You know, Mexican restaurants don't even use fucking cilantro. I would just consider you cilantro at this point.
what is cilantro?
Oh my God, dude.
What is the cilantro that you speak of? Okay, I'm sorry.
But
when I was in
it's-
Japan,
Yes.
But it's life changing.
when I was in Japan, we did a gig with Duff's band, right? And he and I didn't really know each other. We kind of we bonded. Neither one of us was drinking. We hung out. We became friends after that, and we went on to become friends in a very non-musical way. Like he's a big reader, and he would read all these books, and he'd be like, "Dude, I just read this book, called Black Hawk Down, and they made a movie out of it. We should go see this movie." And we'd go and go to the movies together and just like hang out,
Right.
Oh, cool.
And then I started playing with him, and then not Velvet Revolver, but Randy Castillo died, right? Drummer from Ozzy's band. Matt wanted to. I remember being in Swingers on Beverly, and Duff and I were eating, and Matt came in and said, hey, I'm thinking about throwing this benefit for Randy's family to pay for all the, the fees and, the funeral and everything. And he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to Duff, about because he lived right around the corner from Swingers, Matt did. And he was talking about, and he ended up getting like Slash and Duff and Matt back together, which is the first time they had played together in years. And then the singer and the guitar player from Buck Cherry and Steven Tyler and all these dudes got back together and played, a bunch of covers at the Key Club for Randy's thing. Then that's kind of how Velvet Revolver started. They thought, this feels good. Let's do this with the two guys from Buck Cherry. They started. I was doing something with Duff at the time, and then he called me, I remember, and he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna check out this other thing, and I don't know if I'm gonna have time to do that other thing." And I was like, "Oh God," I was so bummed, dude. And I was just like, "Oh, that's cool, you do your thing, and that's good for you, and that's great." And I was working on sets, building sets at the time, and doing art department stuff, and I was like, "Fuck, I gotta." It's $2,500 to join the union, Set Builders Union. And so I was about to ask my dad, and then I kind of just kept going. And then Duff, they only did it for like a month or two, and they were writing songs with those guys. And Duff, and I were talking a lot, and he said, he's like, "Oh, it's not gonna work out with the singer, it's just not. So we're gonna get rid of him." And we got this other guitar player guy, and then he called me a couple weeks later, and he was like, "Hey, you know what? I think we're gonna move on from this other guy too." He's like, "We've written like 8 songs. I'm gonna give you these songs, and you should come down and play." And I was like, "Okay, cool."
Wow.
He's like, "I think we're gonna get rid of him next week. We're gonna. I think it's not gonna work out. We're gonna part ways next week." I said, "Okay, cool." He gives me the 8 songs. He calls me and he says, "Hey man, did you learn any of those songs? Because we ended up just firing him today, and we want you to come down tomorrow." This was like the next day, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" And like, "Okay, yeah, cool. Like, all right, cool." He's like, "Do you know any Guns N' Roses songs?" I'm like, "No." And he goes, "All right, well, maybe you should try and learn, whatever it was, Brownstone or what."
Right.
So I'm like, "Okay, cool." And this is all like what I think happened, it's like pretty much what I remember.
Sure.
And then the next day I went down, and I'd known Slash since junior high, so I was comfortable around him. And Duff I had been playing with off and on for 9 months to a year. I was comfortable around him. Matt I had known just from around. So back to like, was it a lot of pressure? Not really, because I was already kind of comfortable, And I really just came in, and I brought all my pedal board, my weird things, and I just set it all up, and I was like, "All right, cool, let's play." And I don't know, dude. Then they said, we were done, and I was gonna pack up my shit, and they're like, "Oh, you could just leave it," and I was like, "Oh, okay," and like, "Why don't you come back tomorrow and like let's jam some more?" And I was like, "Okay," and I left, and I was stoked, but I didn't know what any of it meant because there was no band really. And it was like, and I still had to work, and I was still like, going to join the union. And so I was getting ready to borrow that money. And then I had asked my dad, already, and he was like, "Yeah, you can borrow the money." And I just kind of held off on it. I was like, "Well, let's see what happens." And it was a really weird 10 months because they never said you're in the band. You know, they never were like, all right, dude, you're in, here's your check or what, whatever.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
it wasn't even really a band yet. It was just like, and then we would record, we write songs 5 days a week. Duff and Slash footed the bill for the rehearsal place. We'd show up, and then I would get afraid that if I took a job on a movie or a music video or whatever, that I would lose my spot. So I wasn't taking any jobs. And so I actually asked Bobby, the guy who owned Mates Rehearsal, if he would give me a job. That way I could be there, because we would rehearse from 2 to 6. So I'm like, well, if I work here at Mates, then I'd work like 9 to 2. And he knew everyone, and he was like, why don't you work 9 to 2? Then you'll be here at 2. You can go to rehearsal, and you can do cartage and whatever. So I was like, all right, cool. And that's what I did. And then the rest is, it took 10 months though, like before we got Scott and we got going. And then, up until the very last minute, I was just like, I remember we were recording, we got Scott in the band, we were recording, the first thing we ever recorded was a song for, The Italian Job. We did a cover of Money by Pink Floyd. And then we did our first original song for the end credits for the Hulk movie, the Ang Lee one with Eric Bana.
Yeah.
And I remember we were in this studio on Highland, and we were recording the song, and it was like midnight. I was like, fuck, dude. I remember Matt being in the room, and I'm like, dude, I gotta go. He's like, what? Where do you gotta go? I'm like, I'm gonna like roadie for my friend's band. They're playing Craig Kilborn, and I gotta be at Hertz Rent-A-Car and get a van at 6 a.m. and then take all their gear to the show, at 7. And he's like, dude, you're in a rock, but yeah, man. He's like, you're in a rock band now. You don't need to fucking. I'm like, dude, I didn't get it. We haven't gotten any checks yet. We haven't gotten any money yet. I'm fucking going, because that's
hustle.
$200 cash.
Yeah, right, yeah,
You know what I mean? So I'm like,
wow.
And that's what I did until I got the first check, and I was like, I don't know. That's just what you do, I guess, unless you don't.
How did the Sons of Anarchy thing happen? How you started to do that stuff?
So the whole band happened. We made 2 records. We ended up firing Scott at one point because the band had just gotten very separated, and so we fired him in 2008, April, and my son was born a month later, right? So I had a kid. He was super colicky. Like it was inconsolable for the first year basically, and it was just like drove us crazy. And so the band, we looked for a singer for like a year. We looked for different singers. We had a guy for a minute, that didn't work out. We tried out the guy from Space Hog. We tried out this guy, this other guy, Ian Thornley. There was talks of Lenny Kravitz being interested. Like there was a lot of, for a year, but at the same time I was like, I don't have a job, and
Right.
Luckily I had saved all my money. I was a partner in the band, so I really I wasn't a hired guy, and I had a piece of everything, and I just saved all my money because at that point I was, 13 years sober when the band started.
Yep.
I had been around. I was old enough to know this could all fall apart tomorrow. So I'm just going to save whatever I can. And so luckily I was in a good position. And, I was like at this impasse again, kind of like, what am I going to do?
Right.
I don't want to be a hired guy. If I leave, my wife's going to go crazy because this kid's out of his mind, and not really, but what, I can't leave her,
Right.
and,
Right.
So I just decided what could I do? I could produce stuff, even though I hadn't really done much of that, or I was interested in composing, for my best friend was a composer, and I just asked him what do you do? How do you do it? And he's like, and it was interesting because both of them said, the guy who produced the first Revolver record I had grown up with as well. And I was like, and I just asked them kind of methodically, how did you do that? How did you do that? And they both said the same thing that was interesting was you have to commit to it and not take other gigs and kind of get into the mindset that this is what I'm going to do now. And I did it, and finally I was like, yeah, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. And I swear to God, I got really lucky, and I was at Johnny Rockets with a few friends of mine. And one of them
Johnny
was
Rockets.
Johnny Rockets is like a diner, like
Which one?
the one at Farmers Market.
Okay.
So I was there with my buddy Scott, who plays bass in Weezer, my buddy Brian Ray, who plays with Paul McCartney, and this guy Bob, who ended up being the composer on Sons of Anarchy. So we're all there eating, and Bob says, hey, I'm working on this new show, and they didn't really start filming yet, but it's kind of like The Sopranos meets the Hells Angels, and blah, blah, blah. And, I think it's really going to be a cool show, and I'm the, music supervisor and the composer, and, if you got any ideas. And I said, oh, you should get bands like, I started throwing out all these band names, like Monster Magnet would be cool, and Clutch, and this band and that band. He's like, oh, really? That's cool. And so it started, it was flowing like this, and, wow. and he was like, if you want to come over and write something, that'd be cool. I have a studio, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and this was like another big thing for me was my head is wired to say no out of fear, like to everything.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Wait a minute. That we talked about that. That
oh, really?
If you want to talk about being fucking Chicano, our heads are wired to say no initially. Like, if you go tomorrow, the guy's going to give you $1,000. No.
Exactly.
I'm not going to go. My life changed because everything was no to me.
Yeah.
And even the guy said, "Are you on your way?" And I said, "No." Like, what are they gonna do for me? And I went. But what you just said was just dead on.
Yeah.
Is that our heads are wired to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why for me this was such a big moment, because
wow.
I wanted to say no, but I said yes. Because I also learned from going to meetings and doing all that stuff was like contrary action. Like, say yes, like you never, whatever, and cause in my head, I'm wired to think like, oh, I'm not really good enough. I know blah, blah, blah.
Right, sure.
I know blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And he's like really good and I'm not really good. And he's older than me and blah. And so I said, all right, cool. Yeah. And he's like, all right, well, why don't you come over, next week? And I said, okay, cool. And terrified, really, if I'm honest,
Sure, of course.
And so, dude, but I had, I was a big fan of this one Shooter Jennings, who's a friend of mine. He had written this record, and there was this one song called This Old Wheel, and I love this song, and I was like, and I was talking to Shooter, and I was like, dude, we should do something together, and I'd love to blow, dude. And I had come up with this riff in my head, thinking of Shooter Jennings, and I went to Bob's, and I was like, oh, dude, I have this riff, and it was that, and he was like, oh, that's cool. And we wrote the whole song in a couple hours because it was a theme song. So it doesn't have to be 3.5 minutes.
Right.
It's, 30 seconds or whatever.
Right. Yep.
And, I had that part, and we recorded like a demo of it that day with him singing on it. And we wrote the lyrics and he sang on it and he wrote the melody, and we had a whole song that day. And then, but it was like the band, dude. It was like, we wrote the song and then we kept I called Shooter. I'm like, hey, you want to sing on this song? And he's like, I don't know. And he wasn't into it because he didn't have any part writing in it, you know? And so, and then we tried like different guys, and we finally got this guy, Curtis Steigers, who crushed it, It was like, and, but they didn't decide it was going to be the theme song for like 9 months. And the funny thing is that Bob would get these emails from Fox that would say like, hey, what if the theme song was like Slash and Lemmy, or what if the theme song was like Stone Temple Pilots? Like, they kept trying to go out to like people that I knew and was in a band with. And we just waited it out, dude. And 9 months later, literally, we went to a screening, a premiere. They would do that like at Paramount, the pilot episode. And literally that week they said, we think we're going to use this as a theme song. And we're sitting in fucking the studio at Paramount, in that theater they have there in the lot. And we watched it and we were like, that's the first time we saw it with the opening credits. And we were like, oh shit, I think this is it, dude. Yeah. Like, this is going to be the theme song. And that was it, dude. And then we got nominated for an Emmy for writing that theme song, and that changed the whole course of my life. You know, it was like I called my agent and I was like at CAA, because the band was with CAA. I'm like, I think I want to be a composer. You know, I think I got some traction now. I got this. I want to parlay this into doing. I want to do this. You know, and that was it. And I started doing it. And then that guy Bob was a music supervisor on this ABC show called Detroit 187, which is like a cop drama. And I didn't know what I was doing, like as far as scoring, or I didn't know how to do all that. And you know, he's like, hey, you and John, my best friend growing up, he's like, if you guys want to do this, you should, you know, send some demos in and blah, 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 or, you know, demo for it. And we got that job. And that's where I learned to like really score, you know, to picture and, you know, do that whole thing. And it was amazing. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Amazing.
And you know, that's how I got here today. Cause Bill, you know, cause I do the music for F is for Family with Bill Burr and, you know, ATC, beautiful. And that's how it's all connected.
Amazing.
It's fucking beautiful.
It's art.
Yeah, here I am.
Fucking
doing your art. That's amazing.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's been really. It's pretty. It's
Quite a ride. I mean, just listening to you, it's quite a ride.
I just met you. I feel like I've known you forever, man.
Yeah.
So with me with Lowrider, so Lowrider comes out, it's Up in Smoke, it's in this thing, and in the '80s, '84, I do Bob and Tom, and you know, I'm a Chicano. I'm in Indianapolis. I'm on the road, and when they introduced me as a guest on Bob and Tom in 1984, they play Lowrider. All those guys here. So I asked those guys. I said, "Hey, man, you guys think you could run me just a copy of Lowrider? You know, like, you know?" And they give it to me on a white cassette. Doesn't say anything on it. It's cassette tape. And I would play it when I would walk on stage because it made me almost feel like I was home.
Yeah.
You know? So never thinking that I would be in a position to have my own show, you know, I had a couple of ideas for songs. So as we're in Warner Brothers over there, they go, so as we do this show, like, what's going to be the theme song? And I said, oh, you know, I got a couple ideas. And the first one was Don't Let No One Get You Down by War, and it starts really slow.
Yeah.
And it starts really slow, but once it starts, it's great. And I remember all the executives were in the room, and they're like, no. What else you got? I go, you know, hesitantly, I say to the person, push number 6. And they push number 6, and it goes, dun, 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 dun. And everybody goes, that's it. And that was it, man. So congratulations, man, because I know what that process is. And it's beautiful, man. And it's funny how life, you know, takes these twists and turns, and who you meet and who goes and what you do and what you don't do, but they all lead to a good place if you say yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, whatever Chicano part of you said no, the Chicano part of me said no. But when I said yes, everything changed, man.
It's incredible. And I'm glad to have had that experience in such a succinct way, you know, where I can go like, oh, this is what happened. That was a thing. It changed my life. Instead of, you know, because you have those experiences, once in a while you say yes to stuff out of taking contrary action.
Maybe somebody has an easy answer. Oh, I did this or I did that.
Yeah.
But when it happens like that, there is no easy answer.
Yeah, because it's like it's being slapped in the head.
It's almost like something saying, well, this had to happen and that had to happen, and you had to go over there to Iowa. Yeah. You had to come back. You had to do this. You had to do that. You had to go to this, and then it all comes together. I mean, nothing's an accident, but
yeah. I mean, it definitely. It's like I remember hearing this saying, like, you know, whatever your view of God or whatever, you know, higher power, with this or that, blah blah blah. You know, it's like I remember someone saying, you know, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. You know, and it's like, dude, there's got to be something up there, because I couldn't have manufactured any of these stories to happen the way they happened. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? To like any of them.
Why
like,
you?
Yeah, what? Like in Johnny Rockets, I say yes, and then the fucking the whole my life changes. Or you know, I'm bummed out because Duff's like, oh, I'm gonna do this thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's like. At that moment, I thought it's over, you know, and I'll go back to doing this.
In San Fernando, there was a Buddhist temple, in San Fernando, and you would see these Buddhists in San Fernando. I was with my grandmother, who was very mean. And my grandmother thought they were Hare Krishnas, and I would be like, Grandma, they're Buddhists. And she would say, Hare Krishnas want, they wanted money or anything. And I would say, they're Buddhists, they don't want anything. And my grandma would say, everybody wants something.
Yeah.
That was really her philosophy. So wherever I moved to, there was a Buddhist temple. I moved to Sherman Oaks, and up the street there's a Buddhist temple. And then when my show started, I bought a house in Hawaii, and at the top there was a Buddhist temple. And then I live, where I live in LA, there's a Buddhist temple. And then in my darkest times, like through my divorce, I was really just, I didn't want to live. And I thought, whoa, what do I need to do to not wish anybody any harm, because that's really what it came down to. And when I got Apple TV, there was all these documentaries, and then I saw one on the Dalai Lama. It was just about, staying there and just being in the moment and not wishing anybody any harm, or just, being kind to people. And and then I started to just attach everything from San Fernando all through my life, and I was like, I think I almost want to, follow the principles of this. So yeah. I look in the computer and I go, well, where's the Dalai Lama going to be? And he's going to be in Boston at this time. And I went to go see him, and I had 2 tickets, but I only went by myself. So when he came out, he shook my hand, and there was a monk that was with him in the front. And I said, hey, would you like to sit in my seat? And I had this empty seat. And he sat there, and you met the dude.
Oh,
and,
great guy.
It just changed everything.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible.
Yeah, man.
It's funny when you want. It's almost like when you have those bigger moments in your life and you want to do them by yourself. You know what I mean? Like if there's a movie comes out even, and you're just like, I'm gonna go see that by myself. Like I remember I used to watch Chavez. Julio Cesar Chavez was like my favorite fighter back in the day.
Yeah.
And I would take my rent money, buy the pay-per-view, and watch it by myself because I didn't want to hear people talking and like if other people's bullshit. And I was just like, I'm just gonna watch Chavez by myself. Like or whatever it was, because it's like. Yeah, man. You wouldn't have had the same experience.
Whatever leads anybody to anything is it's a good thing. So
cool.
Wrap it up, man.
What some people come to a fork in the road. No, I'm just kidding. It's been.
Hey, you're
fantastic.
Lucky you came to my fork in the road, motherfucker.
Yeah,
you could be over there in the
Red
Bay
Roof
area.
Inn. That'd be the Red Roof Inn.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you something about this guy right here. People always say, "Oh, you're so mean to him," and the thing. But when my show started in 2002. Nobody wished me well. Nobody wished me success. Nobody said, hey, man, I saw you this, I saw you there. And this dude right here would call me and say, I saw you in TV Guide. I saw you here, there. Nobody. And then when I needed to replace the guy I was working with, I said, well, it's got to be somebody that, I get along with. And it was my man right there.
Yeah, 16 years ago. So life is good. Very proud. And Dave Kushner, what a pleasure.
Dave,
thanks for letting us in on your life and your wild ride. Congratulations on all your successes. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks. It was great to. It was a great way to spend an afternoon.
Let me tell you something. If I leave this podcast right now and hit my head and I don't make it, this is the best podcast I've been a part of, the best podcast I've ever listened to, and thank you for all that.
I think I feel the same, dude.
Yeah, right on.
I think I feel the same.
It was very special.
Yeah.
Well done.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, and you don't have to be bald to be a fucking Chicano, so, your Cholo.
You gotta have a mustache.
You gotta have the cool.
You gotta have a mustache, dude.
He covered it up.
I fought for years to fucking have my hair long, and then Cholos shave their heads. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Good to see you guys. I'm out.
Awesome.
All right, man. Thank you, man.